He slammed both hands onto her counter so hard, the glass jars rattled and fell. Every customer in that store froze. Anna Whitmore did not step back. She looked straight into the eyes of the most dangerous man in the territory and saw something that stopped her cold. He wasn't angry, he was shaking. Caleb Hart, the mountain man who feared nothing, was standing in her store with tears burning behind his eyes. And the words that came out of his mouth changed both their lives forever. "I need a wife, by tomorrow morning, please." If this story moves you, subscribe to this channel, hit that bell, and drop the name of your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Anna Whitmore had learned a long time ago that the safest thing a woman could do was make herself small. Not invisible. Just small enough that trouble passed right over her without stopping. She had built that skill over 6 years of running the general store in Willow Creek, Wyoming. 6 years of keeping her eyes down when the ranchers argued near the nail barrels. 6 years of smiling just enough to be polite, never enough to invite conversation. 6 years of going home to a quiet room above the store, eating supper alone, and telling herself that quiet was the same thing as safe. She was good at her life. She didn't love it, but she was good at it. And then Caleb Hart walked through her door on a Tuesday morning in November, and everything she had, so carefully built, came apart at the seams. She heard him before she saw him. The door didn't open, it burst. The wooden frame shuddered against the wall, and every head in the store swung around like wheat bending in a sudden wind. 3 customers near the dry goods shelf backed up instinctively. Old Mr. Prentice, who was 82 and claimed to fear nothing since the war, grabbed his wife's arm. And then Caleb Hart filled the doorway. He was enormous. Not in the way men sometimes exaggerated. He was genuinely physically enormous, broad across the shoulders, built like a man who had spent decades hauling timber and fighting winters that would have killed most people. His coat was heavy and worn, the kind of coat that had outlived its original color. His beard was dark and thick, shot through now with threads of gray. There were scars on his jaw, on his hands, on the back of his neck, where an old wound had healed badly. People in Willow Creek told stories about Caleb Hart, that he had survived a mining collapse that buried 15 other men, that he had gone into the mountains afterward and simply stayed there, that he came down twice a year for supplies and spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary, that a cattle rancher who tried to push past him at the livery stable 3 years ago had ended up sitting in the dirt with his pride wounded and his hat knocked sideways. No one picked arguments with Caleb Hart. So when he walked into Anna's store on a November morning with his hands clenched at his sides and his jaw set like iron, and his eyes burning with something that was not rage, that was something far more unsettling than rage, every single customer made a quiet, unhurried decision to be somewhere else. Anna heard boots shuffling, heard the small bell above the door chime twice more as people found reasons to leave. Within 40 seconds, she was alone in the store, with Caleb Hart. She was behind the counter when he walked toward her, and she made herself stand still. She had learned that animals and frightened men responded badly to sudden movement. She set down the bolt of fabric she was folding. She straightened up. She put both hands flat on the counter and looked directly at him. He stopped 4 feet away, and then she saw his eyes up close. She had expected anger. She had been bracing for it, that cold readiness in her chest, the way her whole body had learned to go still and calculating when a man was in a dangerous mood. But Caleb Hart wasn't angry. He was terrified. Not the kind of terrified that comes from physical danger. This was deeper than that. This was the terror of a man staring at the edge of a cliff and understanding for the first time that he might actually fall. His chest was heaving slightly like he'd been walking fast. His hands, those enormous scarred hands, gripped the edge of her counter, and she could see the white of his knuckles. Up close, she could see the gray in his beard more clearly, the deep lines carved into the corners of his eyes. He was older than she'd thought, or maybe just worn in a way that aged a person. He looked at her. She looked back. "I need a wife," he said. His voice was low and rough, like it had been dragged over gravel. The kind of voice that came from years of not using it much. "By tomorrow morning." The silence in the empty store felt enormous. Anna didn't look away from him. She didn't flinch. She let the words sit in the air between them for a moment, gave them room, the way you gave a spooked horse room to settle. "All right," she said finally. "Why?" His jaw tightened. She watched him look down at the counter, then back up at her. She had the strange impression of a man choosing between two different kinds of difficult and finally deciding on the harder one. "I have a daughter," he said. Anna waited. "She's 7 years old." He stopped, started again. "Her mother died 8 weeks ago. Influenza. He pressed his lips together. "I didn't know she existed. Her mother and it wasn't we were young. She moved east. I didn't know there was a child." "And the daughter?" Anna asked carefully. "Where is she now?" "On a train from St. Louis." His voice cracked slightly on the word train, just the faintest fracture, and he caught it and pushed past it. "She arrives tomorrow morning, 6:45. I got a letter 2 weeks ago from the county authorities out there. They said they were sending her to me because I'm the only family she has left." His knuckles went whiter on her counter. "But then I got a second letter, 3 days ago." "What did it say?" "That a judge reviewed my situation. That a single man living alone in the mountains is not considered a suitable guardian for a young child. That unless I can demonstrate a stable home of family when she arrives, they'll place her in the county orphanage in Cheyenne." His eyes met hers, and what she saw in them made something tighten in her chest. "She'll be in that orphanage by noon tomorrow, Miss Whitmore, unless I walk into that station with proof that she's coming home to a family." The clock on the wall behind Anna ticked. Outside, the wind was picking up the leading edge of the season's first hard winter, pushing down from the mountains. "You came to me," Anna said. It wasn't quite a question. "I went to the preacher first," Caleb said. "He told me it was impossible on this notice, that even if a woman agreed, there wasn't time to arrange a legal ceremony before tomorrow." He paused. "He also told me that the justice of the peace can perform a marriage at any hour if both parties are present and willing, and that it would be legal." He looked at her directly. "You're the only woman in this town who I believe might listen to this whole story before deciding." "Why me?" Something moved behind his eyes. Not calculation. Something more like recognition. "Because you've been carrying something heavy for a long time," he said. "And you've been doing it alone. And I thought that maybe a person who understands what it costs to be alone might understand why I can't let that little girl end up in that place." Anna was quiet for a moment. The wind pressed against the window glass. One of the hanging lanterns swayed slightly. "How do you know I've been carrying something?" she asked. "I watch people," he said simply. "I've been watching this town for years. You watch it too. Difference is, you're in it and I'm not." She studied him. The terrified man hidden inside the dangerous reputation. The enormous scarred hands that were shaking just slightly against her counter. The eyes that had seen too much and forgiven themselves for none of it. She thought about a small boy sitting in the snow outside a schoolhouse in Colorado 3 years before she came to Willow Creek. A boy she'd been worried about for weeks. A boy she'd told herself she'd speak to tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and then tomorrow. A boy whose father took him away on a Wednesday evening and whom she never saw again. She still dreamed about that boy. She still woke up some nights reaching for a decision she'd waited too long to make. "Mr. Hart," Anna said, "I'll ask you one question, and I need you to answer it honestly. Not the answer you think I want, the actual truth." He nodded once. "If I agree to this," she said carefully, "and we go to that train station tomorrow morning, and you bring that little girl home, what happens after? Are you trying to keep her because you want to be her father? Or are you trying to keep her because you're afraid of what it means about you if you don't?" The silence stretched. She watched his face, watched him open his mouth, close it, watched something move through his eyes that looked like the first honest thought he'd allowed himself in a very long time. "I don't know," he said finally. "I want to say it's because I want to be her father. But the truth is, I've spent so long believing I was the kind of man who shouldn't be near people that I don't know if I even remember how." He stopped. "What I know is that she's got no one, and I am not going to be the reason she has no one if there's anything in this world I can do to change that." Anna looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "I'll need to close the store." He blinked. "I'll need to speak to the justice of the peace this evening." She continued, her voice and practical. "I'll need to pack a few things. I'll need an agreement in writing about the arrangement, what it is, what it isn't, and what happens at the end of it." Something shifted in his face. A relief so raw and sudden, it looked almost painful. "Miss Whitmore, and I'll need you to understand something," she said firmly. "Before we go any further, I am not doing this for you. I am doing this for a 7-year-old girl who just lost her mother and deserves better than a cold room in a county orphanage. Do we understand each other?" Caleb Hart looked at her for a long moment. "Yes, ma'am," he said quietly. "We do." She nodded once briskly. "Then come back at 7 o'clock this evening, and bring the justice of the peace." He turned to leave, got as far as the door. "Mr. Hart." He stopped. "What's her name?" Anna asked. "Your daughter." He was quiet for a moment, and she got the feeling the name was something he'd been turning over carefully like a coin he wasn't sure belonged to him. "Lily," he said, and then he walked out into the November wind, and Anna stood alone in her empty store, and the clock ticked, and she pressed her hands flat on the counter to stop them from shaking. The ceremony was at 7:45 that evening, in the small back room of the Justice of the Peace's office, with 2 witnesses who were paid $1 each to be there and asked not to ask questions. It took 11 minutes. The Justice of the Peace, a thin man named Alderman, who had married almost everyone in the county at some point, performed the words with the kind of practiced efficiency that suggested he understood the circumstances without needing to be told. Anna wore the blue dress she kept for church. It was the nicest thing she owned, and she wore it because she believed that whatever was about to happen deserved to be taken seriously. Caleb wore a clean shirt. It was the first time she'd seen him without the heavy coat, and she was startled by how differently he moved indoors, carefully, like a man who'd grown unaccustomed to being around breakable things and didn't trust his own size. He didn't say much during the ceremony, but when the Justice of the Peace said, "You may now kiss your bride," Caleb turned to her with an expression so uncomfortable and uncertain that Anna almost laughed. Instead, she reached out and briefly pressed his hand just once, just enough to communicate. "I understand we're not doing that." And he exhaled slowly, and the Justice of the Peace moved on. Afterward, they sat across from each other at a small table in the back room, while Alderman filed the paperwork and they worked out the terms. 1 year. Long enough to satisfy the authorities, long enough to ensure Lily was settled and stable. At the end of the year, if both parties wished it, a quiet and amicable separation could be arranged. Caleb would transfer the deed to the general store to Anna's name outright, regardless of how the year went. She would continue to run it during the week and spend weekends and any necessary appearances at the mountain cabin. Neither of them mentioned love. Neither of them mentioned loneliness. But when Anna walked back to the store that night and stood in the dark room above it, listening to the wind push against the walls, she found herself thinking about things she hadn't allowed herself to think about in years. She thought about what it would feel like to not eat supper alone. She thought about what it would feel like to watch a child grow up. She thought about the boy in the snow outside the schoolhouse, and she promised herself again the same promise she'd made 100 times since, that this time she would not hesitate. This time she would not wait for tomorrow. She would act. She would not be afraid. Morning came fast and cold. The train station in Willow Creek was a small building with a long platform and a single track, and on most mornings it was quiet until the 9 o'clock freight came through. But the 6:45 passenger train from the east was different. It carried mail and travelers, and sometimes it carried things that changed people's lives entirely. Anna arrived at 6:30. Caleb was already there, standing at the far end of the platform, with his hat in his hands, turning it over and over in a slow circle. The way a man does when he needs to do something with his hands, because everything else is out of his control. She walked up beside him and stood there without saying anything. He glanced at her sideways. "You came," he said. "We made an agreement," she said. He nodded and looked back down the track. "What do we know about her?" Anna asked after a moment. "Lily. What did the letter say?" "She's 7. She reads well for her age. She..." He stopped, turned the hat another slow circle. Her mother was a school teacher. She said in the letter she wrote me a letter before she died asking me to take her. She said Lily was stubborn and smart and didn't like being lied to. A faint something crossed his face. She said she got that from me. Did you know? Anna asked carefully. That her mother was pregnant when you left. No. His voice was flat and certain. I would not have left if I had known. I want to be clear about that. She believed him. She wasn't sure why, but she did. The sound of the train reached them before the sight of it, a low, distant rumble building into the shriek and thunder of something enormous arriving at speed. The platform trembled faintly underfoot. The train announced itself with a long, screaming whistle. And then it was there. Steam and iron and noise. Doors opened. A few passengers stepped onto the platform, a businessman in a city coat, a young couple with baggage. A porter stepped down with a mail cart. And then, a small girl climbed down from the third car. She was small for 7, or maybe she just looked small because she was so alone. Dark hair pulled into 2 braids, one of which was coming loose. A gray wool coat that was slightly too large for her. A battered carpet bag that she carried with both hands because it was clearly almost as tall as she was. She stepped off the train and stood on the platform and looked around with the careful measuring look of a child who had learned very recently not to trust that things would be all right. Her eyes found Caleb. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Anna. Then back at Caleb. She walked toward them slowly, the carpet bag swinging against her knees. She stopped about 6 feet away. Caleb crouched down, so he wasn't towering over her. His hat was still in his hands. His knuckles had gone white again. "Lily," he said. His voice was rough and very quiet. I know who you are," she said. Her voice was clear and direct, the voice of a child who had been told to be brave so many times she'd had to figure out what it actually felt like. "My mother told me about you." Something crossed Caleb's face. Not quite pain. Something older and more tired than pain. "I'm glad she did," he said carefully. Lily looked at him with those dark eyes that were already measuring, already calculating, already protecting the places inside her that had recently been broken. "You left her," Lily said. "You left my mother." The words landed on the platform, like something dropped from a great height. Anna saw Caleb's shoulders pull in just slightly the way a man flinches from something he has no defense against. "That's true," he said. He didn't look away from his daughter's face. He didn't make excuses. "And there is nothing I can say about that which will change what it cost both of you." Lily studied him. "Then why should I believe you won't leave me?" The question was 7 years old and 1,000 years old at the same time. Caleb opened his mouth, closed it. Anna saw the honesty working its way through him, the man who'd been alone so long he'd nearly forgotten how to speak the important things out loud. "I can't promise you I'll be good at this," he said finally. "I haven't been good at most things that matter. But I can promise you I am not going to walk away from you. Not now. Not when the winter's hard. Not when you're angry at me, and I reckon you will be. I'm going to be right here." Lily looked at him for a very long time. Then she turned her gaze to Anna. Those measuring eyes. "Who are you?" she asked. Anna crouched down too, so they were all 3 at the same level. "My name is Anna," she said. "I married your father last night." Lily blinked. "Why?" "Because he asked me to," Anna said. "And because I thought you deserved someone in your corner when you stepped off that train." "You don't know me," Lily said. "No," Anna agreed. "Not yet." Lily looked between them. The wind cut down the platform, and she pulled her too big coat a little tighter. "I don't have to call him father," she said. It was not a question. It was a condition. The condition of a child who had very little left to bargain with protecting the few things she still had. "No," Anna said simply. "You don't have to call him anything you're not ready for." Something shifted in Lily's face. Not warmth, not yet, that would take time, and they all 3 knew it. But something like the very first very cautious lowering of a drawbridge over a moat. She picked up her carpet bag. "All right," she said. They walked off the platform together, the three of them, a mountain man and a quiet woman, and a small girl, with one braid coming loose. And Anna thought that this was the strangest and most important thing she had ever done. She also thought with a fierceness that surprised her that she was not going to let this child down. Not this time. Not again. The ride to the cabin took most of the morning. Caleb drove the wagon and Lily sat in the back for the first hour, pressed against the far side with her carpet bag in her lap, watching the mountains come closer, with an expression that was impossible to read. Anna sat on the bench beside Caleb, and they didn't speak much, but she could feel him listening to the silence behind him, the way a man listens for weather. After about an hour, Lily spoke. "My mother said the mountains were beautiful," she said. "She said that was why she never tried to make you come back, because she knew you belonged to them and not to people." Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. "Your mother was a generous woman," he said finally. "She was," Lily agreed. Another silence. "She also said you were the most pig-headed person she ever met, and that you probably hadn't changed." Anna pressed her lips together very firmly. Caleb cleared his throat. "She wasn't wrong about that either," he said. And then the smallest thing happened. Lily, sitting alone in the back of the wagon with her carpet bag on her lap and her one loose braid falling further undone, made a sound. Just a small sound. Not quite a laugh, but in the neighborhood of one, the ghost of a laugh, the idea of one, the first evidence that somewhere inside all that careful guardedness, there was still a 7-year-old who had not entirely forgotten how laughter felt. It lasted only a second. But Anna caught it, and she held it quietly in her chest, like a small warm thing she intended to keep. The cabin was not what Anna had expected. She had imagined something rough and cold, the dwelling of a man who had been alone so long he'd stopped caring about the space around him. But the cabin was solid and carefully built with good thick walls and a stone fireplace that took up most of one wall and windows that caught the western afternoon light. It was spare. But it was not neglected. And she saw as she walked through it for the first time the small, careful things that told a different story than the one she'd heard about Caleb Hart. A row of wooden animals on the shelf above the fireplace. A fox, a bear, a deer, a hawk with wings spread. Carved with real attention, real skill. A small bed in the side room made up with a quilt that was clearly new, the fabric still bright. A hook on the wall by the door at a child's height for hanging a coat. He had been preparing. He had been hoping. Anna stood in the doorway of the small side room and looked at the new quilt on the new-made bed and felt something shift in her chest, some piece of the careful distance she'd maintained since yesterday beginning to work itself loose. Behind her she heard Lily step up and look over her shoulder into the room. The girl was quiet for a moment. "He made that bed," she said. It wasn't quite a question. "I think so," Anna said. Lily stepped past her into the room, set her carpet bag down at the foot of the bed, ran one hand very slowly across the surface of the quilt. "My mother made quilts," she said quietly. "Did she? She used to say you could tell everything about a person from what they made with their hands." She looked at the quilt for another moment. Then she looked up at the shelf where the wooden animals waited. "Did he make those too?" "I don't know," Anna said. "You could ask him." Lily glanced back toward the main room, where they could hear Caleb setting things down, moving carefully in a space he seemed to be trying not to take up too much of. She didn't answer, but she went and stood in the doorway and looked at the fox on the shelf. And Caleb, coming through from the back of the cabin, stopped when he saw her looking at it. He didn't say anything, just stopped and waited, the way a man waits who has learned that you cannot rush the things that matter. Lily looked at the fox for a long time. Then she looked at her father. "Did you make it?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She looked back at the fox. "It's good," she said. It was the smallest thing. 3 words. But the way Caleb's face changed, some tightly held thing in it, releasing just slightly like a fist, slowly opening, made Anna understand that those 3 words were the first kindness his daughter had offered him. And he received them the way a man receives something precious and fragile and slightly unbelievable, very, very carefully. That night, Anna cooked supper while Caleb tended the fire, and Lily sat at the table and watched both of them with those serious dark eyes, and no one said much of anything important. They spoke about practical things, about the store in town, about how Lily would go to school when the weather permitted, about the way the mountain winters worked the things to watch for the signs that a storm was coming. Practical things, safe things. But underneath the practical things, Anna was aware of something else happening. The three of them moving around each other in this space, learning the distances and angles of it adjusting. Like three instruments that hadn't played together before, finding the common key by careful degrees. After supper, Lily helped Anna clear the table without being asked. It was a small thing, but Anna noticed it, and when she put Lily to bed that night, sitting on the edge of the new quilt, while the girl looked up at her with careful eyes, Lily asked the question Anna had been expecting. "Are you going to stay?" Lily asked. "Actually stay. Not like the people who say they will." Anna was quiet for a moment. "I'm not going to make you a promise I'm not sure I can keep," she said. "That wouldn't be honest. What I can tell you is that I'm here right now tonight and I intend to be here tomorrow, and after that we'll see." Lily looked at her. "My mother said honest people are rare," she said. "Your mother sounds like she was very wise." "She was." A pause. "She also cried sometimes when she thought I was asleep, after she got sick." Lily's voice didn't waver. She said it the way a child says things that are too big to feel all at once, so they come out very flat and factual, like reporting the weather. "She was scared I'd be alone." "I know," Anna said quietly. "Are you scared of anything?" Lily asked. Anna thought about it honestly. "Yes," she said. "What?" "Making the wrong choice," Anna said. "Or making no choice when I should. I'm afraid of standing still when I should be moving." Lily considered this for a while. Her eyes were getting heavy, that underwater slowness of a child on the edge of sleep. "That's a good thing to be scared of," she said finally. "Why?" But Lily was already asleep. Anna sat on the edge of the bed for a little while longer than she needed to. She listened to the wind push against the cabin walls and the fire settle in the next room. She listened to the sound of Caleb moving quietly around the main room, banking the fire, setting things in order for the night, doing the small practical things a man does when he is trying very hard not to hope too much. She thought about tomorrow, about all the tomorrows after that, about how strange and terrifying and quietly extraordinary it was to be sitting in a mountain cabin in Wyoming in November, beside a sleeping child she'd met that morning in a marriage she'd agreed to less than 24 hours ago. And she thought about the boy in the snow outside the schoolhouse. She thought about him the way she always did, with a clean, honest guilt, the kind that didn't make excuses for itself. "I waited too long," she told herself, "and I am not going to do that again." She leaned down and very gently tucked the quilt up under Lily's chin. Lily didn't wake, but in her sleep so slightly that it was barely visible, she turned toward the warmth. Anna stood up, smoothed her skirt, and walked back into the main room. Caleb was sitting by the fire, elbows on his knees, staring into the flames with the expression of a man who has been given something he doesn't know how to hold without dropping it. He heard her and looked up. "She's asleep," Anna said. He nodded, looked back at the fire. "She said the fox was good," he said. The words were so quiet she almost missed them. "She did," Anna agreed. She sat down in the other chair, her chair now she supposed, and looked at the fire too. "You were a teacher," he said after a while. It wasn't a question. He'd heard it somewhere, or figured it from the way she'd spoken to Lily. "For 4 years," she said. "In Colorado." "Why'd you stop?" She was quiet for a moment. "I made a mistake," she said. "I let a child down, and I couldn't. After that I couldn't go back to the classroom and be the person who stands at the front of the room, like they have all the answers." She looked at the fire. "So I came here, and I built a quiet life, and I got very good at not doing anything that mattered very much." He looked at her sideways. "Until yesterday," he said. "Until yesterday," she agreed. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind had picked up the deep mountain wind that meant the first real snow was not far off. "Why'd you really come to me?" she asked. "Out of everyone in this town?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because everyone else would have helped me out of pity," he said. or fear, or because they wanted something from it. He paused. I watched you for years, Miss Whitmore Anna. You run that store with more decency than most people have in their whole lives. You're fair to everyone who comes through that door. You don't gossip. You don't push people. He stopped. And when the Hensley boy came in last spring and couldn't pay for his mother's medicine, you gave it to him and wrote it down as a purchase so he'd have his dignity. Anna was still. She hadn't known anyone had seen that. I thought, Caleb continued carefully, that a woman like that might understand what it means to want to do the right thing. Even when it's difficult. Even when it costs something. He looked at the fire. I hoped so anyway. Anna didn't say anything for a while. Then she said, She's going to be all right, you know, Lily. He looked at her. How do you know? He asked. Because she's stubborn and smart and doesn't like being lied to, Anna said. You told me that yourself. She paused. And because she's got more fight in her than she knows yet. She'll figure it out. He was quiet. You have to let her be angry, Anna said gently. You understand that. She's going to be angry for a while yet. I know. And you can't try to buy her out of it with carved animals. Well, you can carve her animals, she amended, because she liked the fox. But you can't use them to avoid the conversations that are going to be hard. He looked at her steadily. You're giving me a lot of instructions for someone who agreed to a one-year arrangement. I'm giving you what you paid for, she said simply. You said you needed someone who understands what it feels like to be alone. I do. And I'm telling you what I know. You can take it or leave it. A beat. I'll take it, he said. The fire settled lower. The wind outside found a crack somewhere in the eaves and whistled through it one long note of pure cold. Anna stood up. Good night, Mr. Hart. Caleb, he said. If we're going to do this, you might as well call me Caleb. She looked at him, nodded once. Good night, Caleb. She went to the small room off the kitchen, the room he'd quietly prepared for her without being asked. There was a lantern already lit on the table, a quilt on the bed, and on the windowsill a single small carved bird, a wren she thought that had not been there when she arrived. She stood looking at it for a moment. Then she picked it up and turned it over in her hands, looking at the careful, precise work of it, the way each feather had been individually shaped. A man who carved like this was not the man the town thought he was. She set the wren back on the windowsill and got into bed, and she lay in the dark in a mountain cabin that was not her home, and listened to the wind and the fire and the sound of a small girl breathing in the next room. And for the first time in 6 years, the silence did not feel like an absence. It felt like something that was just beginning. The morning after the wedding came without ceremony. Anna woke before the light did, the way she always had, the old habit of a woman who ran a store and had learned that the early hours were the only ones that belonged entirely to her. But this morning was different. The ceiling above her was not the ceiling she knew. The sounds were not the sounds she knew. The creak of the cabin walls, the deep particular silence of the mountains before dawn, the smell of pine sap and cold stone. All of it was unfamiliar, and for a moment she lay perfectly still, taking inventory of where she was and what she had done. She had married Caleb Hart. She had agreed to live in a mountain cabin for a year. There was a 7-year-old girl sleeping in the next room who had lost her mother 8 weeks ago, and who had stepped off a train yesterday with one braid undone and more dignity than most adults Anna had ever known. She got up. She dressed in the cold and walked out into the main room, and Caleb was already there, standing at the kitchen table with his back to her, and the fire was already going, and there was coffee on the stove. He heard her come in and didn't turn around. Coffee's ready, he said. Thank you, she said. She poured herself a cup and stood near the fire, and they were quiet together for a while, the way two people are quiet when they haven't figured out yet what kind of quiet they share. She's still sleeping? Caleb asked. Yes. He nodded, picked up his own cup, set it down, picked it up again. I don't know how to do this, he said finally. Not to her exactly. More to the room. More to the fact of the morning. Do what? She asked. Any of it. He turned around then, and she saw that he'd been awake for a while. His eyes had that particular scraped quality of a man who'd spent the night staring at the ceiling doing math on his own failures. I don't know how to be someone's father. I don't know how to... He stopped. I don't know how to be someone who has people. Nobody does, Anna said. At first. That's not particularly comforting. It wasn't meant to be comforting. It was meant to be true. He looked at her. She held his gaze over the rim of her coffee cup. You want comfort. You can find that somewhere else. What I can give you is honest. You're going to make mistakes with her. Probably today. Possibly in the first hour after she wakes up. The question is whether you stay after you make them. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you always talk like this in the morning. Like what? Like a woman who's already thought through everything twice before the sun came up. I was a school teacher, she said. We get up early. Something moved across his face. Not quite a smile, but something in that direction. A brief loosening of the lines around his mouth. A flicker of something less guarded than his usual expression. It was gone almost immediately. But Anna filed it away. Lily woke up 40 minutes later, and the sound of her waking a creak of the floorboard, a small shuffle of feet, made Caleb go entirely still in the way of a man who has just heard something important and isn't sure what to do with it. She came out of her room with her hair loose from both braids. Now her wool coat over her nightgown, her feet in socks. She stopped in the doorway and looked at both of them in turn, and Anna saw her doing the same thing she'd done on the platform yesterday, measuring, calculating, deciding how much to trust what her eyes were telling her. Good morning, Anna said simply. Good morning, Lily said. She looked at Caleb. Caleb looked back at her. The silence lasted about 3 seconds longer than comfortable. Then Lily said, Is there food? Caleb exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath underwater. Yes, he said. Sit down. She sat down. He put a plate in front of her, eggs and bread. Simple, warm, and she ate without ceremony. And the three of them existed in the same space together for the first time without anyone demanding anything from anyone else. It was small. It was almost ordinary. Anna thought it might be the beginning of something. The first week was not easy, but it was not as hard as Anna had braced for. Lily was watchful. She helped with the dishes when Anna washed them. She asked questions about the mountains. Careful, factual questions, the kind a child asks when they're gathering information about a place before they decide whether to trust it. She carried her carpet bag with her for the first 3 days, even inside the cabin, and Anna understood that without saying anything about it. The bag was her proof that she could leave. The bag was her safety. On the 4th day, she left it in her room. Anna didn't point it out, but she noticed. Caleb was careful with her in a way that was clearly costing him something. He was a man who moved through the world with directness when he had something to say. He said it, and when he didn't, he was silent. But with Lily, he was treading water, watching every word, trying to figure out how to be present without being overwhelming. Anna watched him work at it and thought that most men in his position would have given up on careful days ago and defaulted to authority. Caleb Hart didn't do that. He held himself back, patient in the way of a man who knows that what he wants can't be taken, only waited for. She respected him for it, even when it was painful to watch. The problem came on the 5th day, and it came as the real problems usually do, from something small. Lily had found a box of letters in the back of the cabinet in the main room. Old letters tied together with a faded cord, written in a woman's handwriting. She brought them to the table and sat down with them, and Caleb came in from outside and saw them and went perfectly still. "Where did you get those?" he said. His voice was wrong. Too flat. Too careful. The voice of a man who has just walked into a room where something important has been disturbed. Lily looked up at him. "In the cabinet. I was looking for paper." "Those aren't you shouldn't have gone through the cabinet." "I wasn't going through it. I was looking for paper." "Those are private," Caleb said. "Put them back." "I didn't read them," Lily said, and her voice had gone careful too, the careful of a child who can feel a temperature change in a room and is recalibrating. "I just found them. I wanted to know if they were from my mother." Caleb crossed the room in 4 steps and took the letters from the table. Not roughly, not angrily exactly, but with a speed and a certainty that made Lily sit back in her chair. She looked at him. He looked at the letters in his hands. The silence was the bad kind, the kind with an edge on it. "Are they from my mother?" Lily asked again. Her voice was very quiet. "Yes," Caleb said. "Can I read them?" "No." "They're from my mother," Lily said. And now there was something under the quiet, something that trembled just barely at the edges. "She's my mother. Those are from her." "They're not—" He stopped. His jaw worked. "They're not things a child should read." "I'm not a child," Lily said, with the absolute certainty of someone who has recently been forced to grow up faster than anyone asked her to. "You're 7 years old. And my mother is dead, and you're keeping her letters, and you won't let me read them, and you didn't even know I existed until—" She stopped. She pressed her lips together. She stood up from the table with a steadiness that was heartbreaking, picked up her carpet bag from the floor where she'd left it. She'd brought it back out without Anna noticing. Of course she had. Of course she'd brought it back and walked into her room and closed the door. Not a slam. A quiet final close that was somehow worse than a slam. Caleb stood holding the letters. Anna had watched the whole thing from the kitchen doorway. She stepped into the room now, and Caleb turned to look at her, and his face had the particular expression of a man who knows he made the wrong call and is trying to figure out how to justify it anyway. She didn't say anything. She let him get there himself. He ran his hand through his hair. "They're not appropriate for a child." "That may be true," Anna said. She shouldn't just go through the cabinet without asking. She wasn't going through it. She was looking for paper. There's a difference, and she's 7 and she doesn't know which cabinets to stay out of because she's been here 4 days. He was quiet. "She asked you a reasonable question," Anna said. "And instead of answering it, you scared her." "I didn't." "You moved fast toward someone small," Anna said. "And you used your size and your voice. I'm not saying you meant to. I'm saying that's what happened." Caleb put the letters down on the table. He looked at the door to Lily's room. Something moved across his face, something that was not anger, that was very specifically the opposite of anger. That was the kind of pain a person feels when they recognize themselves as the thing they were afraid of becoming. "She's going to think I'm angry at her," he said. "Yes." "I'm not angry at her." "Then you need to tell her that," Anna said. "Right now, not later. Right now while she's sitting in that room with her carpet bag deciding whether to trust you." He looked at the door for another moment. Then he crossed the room and knocked. "Lily." His voice was different. Rougher, but gentler, the voice of a man reaching past his own defenses. "Can I come in?" A long pause. "It's your cabin," Lily said. "I'm asking if I can come in," he said. "That's different." Another pause. "Okay," she said. He went in. Anna stayed in the main room. She could hear them, not the words, just the low murmur of Caleb's voice, and then the higher, wary silence that was Lily listening. Then his voice again, lower still. Then a very long silence. Then Lily's voice, a question. Anna couldn't make out the words. And then Caleb's voice answering, and this time she could make out what he said, because the cabin was small, and the walls were not thick, and he was not trying to be quiet anymore. "They were love letters," he said. "Your mother wrote them to me after I left. I didn't know she sent them until 2 years ago. A man who knew us both forwarded them. I've read every one of them." A pause. "They say things about that, not bad things, but things I don't know if I deserve. And I wasn't ready for you to read them before I had the chance to be someone worth what she said about me." Silence. "She thought you were worth it?" Lily asked. "She seemed to," Caleb said. "I don't know why." A very long pause. "She was usually right about people," Lily said finally. The sound of that, the careful, enormous gift of it, was so quiet that Anna almost missed it. She turned away and looked out the window, and her throat did something complicated, and she pressed the back of her hand to her mouth for a moment and breathed. When Caleb came back out of Lily's room 15 minutes later, his face was different, not repaired, not fixed, but like something in it had shifted, some gear that had been grinding had found its catch and settled. He sat down at the table. He looked at Anna. "She wants the letters," he said. "When she's older. I told her she could have them." "That was the right thing," Anna said. "She also told me I need to label the cabinets." he said, "so she knows which ones to ask before opening." Anna pressed her lips together. "That's very practical. She's very practical." He was quiet for a moment. "She reminds me of her mother." "Does she remind you of anyone else?" Anna asked. He thought about it, looked toward the door. "She reminds me of the person I wanted to be," he said. "Before I decided it was easier not to." Anna looked at him steadily. "It's not too late to go back to that person." He met her eyes. "You sound like you believe that," he said. "I do," she said. And she did. The first town visit came at the end of the second week, when Anna needed to return to the store for a full day of business, and Caleb brought Lily in to buy the things she needed for school. It was Anna's mistake in retrospect not to have prepared them better for what the town would be like. Willow Creek was a small place, and small places ran on gossip, the way other towns ran on commerce. The story of Caleb Hart marrying the quiet storewoman in a matter of hours had spread through every corner of the territory inside 48 hours. By the time Anna had opened the store the next morning, she had fielded 12 separate looks that contained multitudes and 4 women who had found reasons to stop in that had nothing to do with purchasing anything. She could handle that. What she hadn't fully considered was what it would be like for Lily. She heard it from 2 aisles away while she was going over accounts with one of her suppliers. A woman's voice, Mrs. Clara Binch, who was the kind of person who believed that social concern and cruelty were the same thing, speaking to another woman near the fabric bolts. "That's the child," Mrs. Binch said, not whispering, not even trying. "The mountain man's illegitimate daughter. The poor little thing doesn't even know." Anna was moving before she finished the sentence. She came around the corner of the aisle and put herself between Mrs. Binch and the place where Lily was standing 6 feet away, looking at a display of hair ribbons with her back very straight and her shoulders very still. The stillness of a child who is pretending not to hear something she is absolutely hearing. "Clara," Anna said. Her voice was perfectly pleasant. "What can I help you find today?" Mrs. Binch blinked at her. "Anna, I was only—" "Let me know when you're ready to purchase something," Anna said, still pleasant, still completely immovable. "I'll be happy to help you." She turned to Lily. The girl was looking at her now, that measuring gaze that Anna was beginning to know. "Did you find ribbons you liked?" Anna asked. "Yes," Lily said. Her voice was steady, her chin was up. "Show me," Anna said. And she walked away from Mrs. Binch without another word, and she stood beside Lily at the ribbon display, and they talked about colors for 3 minutes, as if nothing had happened at all. Caleb was at the far end of the store and had not heard any of it. But when they left at the end of the day, Lily walking between them on the street, Lily reached up without saying anything and took Anna's hand. Just for a moment, just until they reached the wagon. And then she let go and climbed up and sat in the back with the supplies, and she didn't say a word about Mrs. Binch or what she'd heard. But that night, when Anna was brushing her hair before bed, Lily had finally that morning asked if Anna would help with her braids, and Anna had understood what it cost to ask that Lily spoke into the mirror. She said, "Illegitimate," Lily said. "What does that mean exactly?" Anna's hand stilled in the girl's hair for just a moment. Then she kept going steady. "It means your parents weren't married when you were born," Anna said. "Is that bad?" Lily asked. "It's a thing that happened," Anna said. "It doesn't say anything about who you are." Lily considered this. "Mrs. Binch thinks it's bad." "Mrs. Binch," Anna said carefully, "has mistaken knowing everyone's business for knowing anyone's worth. Those are very different things." A pause. "What does that mean?" Lily asked. "It means she's wrong about you," Anna said. "And it means don't let her be the one who gets to decide what your life means." In the mirror, she saw Lily look at her reflection, then look at Anna's reflection, then back at herself. "You're different from other grown-ups," Lily said. "How so?" "You don't try to make me feel better by pretending things aren't bad," Lily said. "You just tell me what's actually true." "I find it works better," Anna said. "My mother was like that too," Lily said quietly. Anna finished the second braid and tied it. She let her hands rest on the girl's shoulders for a moment. "Then you've had good examples," Anna said. "Hold on to that." Lily looked at herself in the mirror for another long moment. Looked at the ribbons in her new braids. She'd chosen blue, the same blue as the dress Anna had worn to the wedding, which Anna was certain was not a coincidence. "Okay," Lily said. It was the same word she'd said on the train platform. Okay. A small word that Lily seemed to use when she'd made a decision that cost her something. Anna understood by now that when Lily said okay, it was not surrender. It was commitment. The weeks turned and the cabin turned with them. Small things happened one after another, like stones being placed one at a time across a stream. Lily began leaving her carpet bag in her room in the mornings. Lily began telling Caleb not calling him anything still, but addressing him directly, which was its own kind of progress when she needed things. She needed more paper. She needed a better candle for reading at night. She needed someone to explain why the mountain looked closer in the cold air. Caleb answered her questions with a seriousness that matched hers. He ordered the paper. He found a better candle. He explained the light and the cold and the way the mountains behaved in winter, with the gravity of a man who had spent years learning the landscape alone and had never had anyone to teach it to. It was something to watch. Anna watched it. She also watched Caleb watching Lily when he thought no one was looking. The way he tracked her movements through the cabin, not possessively, but carefully. The way you watch something you can't quite believe is real and keep checking to make sure it's still there. He would look at his daughter's bent head while she was reading, and something would cross his face that was not quite a smile, not yet, but was the country that smiles come from. He was learning how to hope again. The problem was that hoping was terrifying him. Anna could see it in the way he stiffened when Lily laughed like he was waiting for something to take it away. She could see it in the way he sometimes pulled back just when he might have stepped forward. She could see it in the way he looked at the letters he'd put back in the cabinet, the letters from Lily's mother, like they were both a promise and a verdict. She cornered him about it one evening when Lily was asleep. "You're holding yourself at arm's length," she said. He was cleaning his rifle at the table. He set it down. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Anna said. She sat down across from him. "She laughed today when you told her about the fox that stole your boot last winter. She laughed so hard she snorted, and you looked like you'd just been handed something you didn't know how to put down." He was quiet. "You're afraid that if you let yourself love her, something will happen," Anna said. "You're afraid the wanting will cause the losing." He looked at her with a directness that was uncomfortable. "You can't tell me that's not how it works. You know better than that." "I know that holding back doesn't protect anyone," Anna said. "It just means you both lose the time before the losing happens. And if something happens to her, then you will survive it or you won't," Anna said. "But at least she'll have had a father who was actually there. Not a man who was so busy protecting himself from grief that he forgot to show up for joy." His jaw was tight. His hands had gone still on the table. "That," he said, "is a very difficult thing to hear." "I know," Anna said. "And you're telling me because you think I need to hear it." "I'm telling you because she needs you to hear it," Anna said. "There's a difference." He looked at his hands, then at the cabinet with the letters, then back at her. "You said once that you made a mistake," he said, "with a student, in Colorado." Anna went very still. He wasn't looking at her accusingly. He was looking at her the way he'd looked at the letters, like something that needed to be handled carefully. "Yes," she said. "What happened?" She hadn't talked about it. Not to anyone. Not in 6 years. She looked at the fire. "There was a boy," she said, "in my class, 8 years old. He came to school with bruises sometimes. He was quiet in the way that worried me, not shy quiet, not dreamy quiet. Careful quiet. The kind of quiet that means a child is managing something too heavy for them at home." She stopped. "I noticed for weeks. I thought about speaking to someone about it. I told myself I'd do it on Monday. Then Monday came, and he seemed better, and I told myself it was Tuesday." She pressed her fingers flat against the table. "On a Wednesday his father came and took him out of school. They moved away. I never heard from them again, and I never found out what happened to him, and I have thought about that child every week for 6 years." She stopped. Caleb was looking at her steadily. "I don't know whether he was fine," she said. I don't know whether anything I did would have changed it. What I know is that I waited, and I promised myself I would never wait again. She looked at him. That's why I said yes to you. Not because of the store, not because of money. Because you asked me to help a child and I wasn't going to stand still. The fire clicked and settled. You couldn't have known, Caleb said. What would have happened? No, she said. But I knew something was wrong, and I chose to wait for a better moment, and the moment never came. She looked at him directly. Don't be me, Caleb. Don't stand at a distance from your daughter, waiting for a safer time to love her. The safer time doesn't come. It just turns into years. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I buried 17 men. Anna waited. In the mining collapse, 18 months after I left her mother. I was the only man who came out of it. He looked at the table. 17 men and I walked out of the ground, and I have never in my life been able to answer the question of why it was me. Why I got to walk out. He pressed his hands flat. I told myself it was because I wasn't supposed to be close to anyone. Because people near me got hurt. Because the safest thing, the kindest thing was to stay away. And now? Anna asked. He looked toward the door of Lily's room. Now I have a daughter who says she doesn't have to call me father, he said. And she's right, she doesn't. But I swear to God, every time she looks at me, I feel like I'd give everything I have left just to be worthy of it if she ever does. Anna looked at him. Then be worthy of it, she said simply. Starting tomorrow morning. Get up, make the coffee, tell her something true. Listen to what she says back. Do it every day. That's all it is. He looked at her for a long moment. You make it sound simple, he said. I make it sound doable, she said. There's a difference. Something in his face shifted, and she knew she saw it clearly, that this was the moment the thing inside him gave. Not broke, but gave the way. Ice gives at the end of winter slowly, and then all at once. He nodded once. Okay, he said. It was Lily's word. Anna didn't think he knew that. But she thought that somewhere in this cabin, in this strange cobbled-together life, they were making words were beginning to mean the same things to all three of them. And that was something. 3 weeks later, the twist came from the direction Anna least expected. It was a Thursday morning and she was at the store and the mail came in on the 9 o'clock freight, and among the letters and packages, there was an envelope addressed to her in handwriting she recognized immediately and had not seen in 6 years. The return address was Colorado Springs. Her hands went cold. She set the envelope on the counter, looked at it for a long moment. The store was quiet around her midweek, mid-morning, that particular hush of a place between customers. She opened it. The letter was from the school board in the district where she'd taught. A formal letter, bureaucratic in its language, measured in its tone. It informed her that they had conducted a review of records related to a student from the 1887 school year. That during this review, certain questions had arisen regarding the handling of a welfare concern. That they would appreciate her account of the relevant events. That this was not a formal proceeding. That they simply wished to understand what had occurred. She read the letter 3 times. The third time her hands were shaking. She folded it, put it in her apron pocket, stood behind the counter for several minutes, doing nothing at all except breathing. She had told herself for 6 years that waiting had been a mistake. She had built her guilt around that fact, like a wall had made it the architecture of her caution, her silence, her small quiet life. But she had also, in the deep down place, she didn't look at directly, allowed herself to believe that, since she'd never heard from anyone about it, since no consequence had come, perhaps the boy had been all right. Perhaps she had waited and the worst had not happened. The letter meant someone was looking. The letter meant there was a something that had happened. She stood behind her counter in Willow Creek, Wyoming, in the cabin of a husband she'd married 4 weeks ago, for the sake of a child she was already half in love with, and she understood that the past she had run from had just sent her a forwarded address. She served 3 customers that afternoon and had no memory of what they bought. That evening she did not tell Caleb. She told herself she would wait until she knew more. She told herself there was nothing to tell yet. She told herself all the things a person tells themselves when they are afraid of what honesty will cost, and she recognized every single one of them, and she told herself anyway. She lay awake that night listening to the wind. And in the dark, in the quiet of the cabin, a voice in her head said very clearly, "You told him not to be you. And here you are, being you." In the morning, she got up before the light again. Caleb was already at the kitchen table, coffee on the stove, fire going. The same as every morning in 4 weeks, the routine they had assembled without discussing it, one piece at a time. He looked up when she came in, looked at her face. "What happened?" he said. She stopped. She looked at this man she had married for a child's sake. This man she had watched learn to hope again. This man who had told her about 17 men buried underground and the question of why he got to walk out. She reached into her apron pocket and put the letter on the table. He read it. She watched him read it, watched his face change as he worked through it, watched him reach the end and set it down and look at her. "You've known since yesterday," he said. "Yes. You were going to wait to tell me." She held his gaze. "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. She braced herself for the judgment, for the pullback, for the careful distance that people put between themselves and other people's disasters. "What do you need?" he said. She blinked. "I'm sorry," she said. "What do you need?" he said again. "To handle this, to respond to them, to find out what it is they know." He looked at her steadily. "What do you need me to do?" Something happened in her chest, something that she didn't have a word for, immediately a sudden pressure, a sudden warmth. Something that felt like the ground becoming solid under her feet when she hadn't realized she was walking on uncertain footing. "I don't know yet," she said. "Okay," he said. "Figure it out. I'll be here." She looked at him across the table in the early morning light. This man who had walked into her store 4 weeks ago shaking with terror and asked her to save his daughter. She thought, "I did not come here to save him. I know that. But I think someone should tell him that he saved me too. When the time is right. I think someone should tell him that." She picked up the letter. She put it back in her apron pocket. "I'm going to write back to them," she said. "And I'm going to tell them the truth." "Good," Caleb said. "It might—" She stopped. "It might change things. People's opinion of me here. It might change things with the authorities about Lily." "We'll manage it," he said. "You don't know that." "No," he said. "But I know we'll manage it together, which is a different thing than knowing it'll be fine." He poured her coffee, set it in front of her. "Drink this. Lily's going to be up soon, and she's going to want to know why you look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't sleep." "I know. Drink the coffee." She sat down. She wrapped both hands around the cup. She breathed. From behind the door of the small room, she heard Lily stir, heard the familiar creak of the floorboard, heard the shuffle of small feet. And in a few moments the door opened, and Lily came out in her wool coat over her nightgown, her braids messy from sleep, her face carrying that particular 7-year-old combination of alertness and outrage at being awake. She looked at both of them. "Why does everybody look serious?" she said. Caleb and Anna looked at each other. "Grown-up business," Caleb said. "That's what people say when they don't want to answer the question," Lily said. "You're right," he said. "But it's still the answer." Lily regarded him with deep professional skepticism. Then she sat down and accepted the plate he put in front of her. "Is it bad?" she asked. "We don't know yet," Anna said. Lily chewed, considered. "Is it fixable?" Caleb looked at Anna. Anna looked at Lily. "We're going to find out," Anna said. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with this, and applied herself to her breakfast. And Anna sat across from both of them, this child who had stepped off a train with one braid undone, and more courage than anyone she'd ever met, and this man who was learning day by day how to be someone who stayed, and she thought that whatever the letter meant, whatever it was going to cost her, she was not going to run. Not this time. Not from this. She had run long enough. She wrote the letter to Colorado Springs on a Friday evening, sitting at the kitchen table after Lily was asleep with Caleb across from her, doing nothing except being there. She had not asked him to stay. He had simply not left. She wrote 3 drafts. The first one was defensive. She could feel it in every sentence, the way it tilted toward explaining herself before anyone had accused her of anything. She crossed it out. The second one was too sparse, too clinical. The letter of a woman trying to disappear into facts. She crossed that out too. The third one she wrote slowly, and what came out was the truth. What she had observed, what she had thought, what she had decided, what she had failed to decide. What she did not know, and had spent 6 years not knowing. She signed her name, folded the letter, sealed it. "Done?" Caleb asked. "Done," she said. "Does it say what you actually mean?" She looked at the envelope. "Yes." "Then it's good," he said. She put it on the corner of the table to go out with the morning mail. Then she sat there for a moment with her hands in her lap, feeling the particular exhaustion that comes not from work, but from honesty. "You want to know what I'm most afraid of?" she said. It wasn't quite a question. "If you want to tell me," he said. "That the boy wasn't all right," she said. "That they're writing to me because something happened to him, and my waiting had something to do with it." She looked at the envelope. "I can live with having made a mistake. I've been doing that for 6 years. What I don't know if I can live with is finding out it mattered more than you thought," Caleb said. She looked at him. "Yes," she said. I was quiet for a moment. "You can live with it," he said. "I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm saying I've seen what you can carry and keep walking, and it's more than most people can manage. Whatever that letter says, when the answer comes back, you'll carry it and keep walking." She looked at him across the table. "How do you know that?" she asked. "Because you're still walking," he said. 6 years and a wrong decision and a quiet life you built to yourself to hide in. And you still said yes to a terrifying man who burst into your store and asked you to save his daughter." He looked at her steadily. "Women who can't carry things don't do that. They close the door." She was quiet for a long time. "You're becoming someone who says true things," she said finally. Something crossed his face. Almost a smile. Almost. "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation." And Anna, for the first time in longer than she could clearly remember, laughed. A real one. Short and surprised and entirely genuine. It was gone quickly. But it had been there. And Caleb looked at the place where it had been, with the same expression he used when he looked at the wooden animals he carved, careful, precise attention, like something worth remembering. The answer from Colorado Springs came 11 days later. Anna was at the store when it arrived. She recognized the return address before she'd fully picked the envelope up, and she set it back on the counter and stood there for a long moment, the way you stand before something that is going to change the shape of your day, regardless of what it says. She had 3 customers in the store. She waited until the last one left before she opened it. The letter was not what she had expected. It was not an accusation. It was not a formal finding or a reprimand or a legal proceeding. It was a letter from a woman named Margaret Hollis, who identified herself as the supervising director of the school board's welfare review. The letter was careful and measured and professional, and buried in the 3rd paragraph was the sentence that Anna read 4 times, and then sat down to read a 5th. The student in question. Thomas Briggs was removed from your classroom in March of 1886 and relocated with his mother to relatives in Kansas. Records from the Kansas County office indicate that Mrs. Briggs filed a report with local authorities regarding her husband in October of 1886, and that the family was subsequently placed in a protected residence. Thomas Briggs, now aged 9, is reported by his current teacher to be progressing well academically and demonstrates no significant behavioral concerns. Anna put the letter flat on the counter. She read that paragraph a 6th time. The boy was alive. The boy was 9. The boy was in Kansas with his mother, and he was doing well in school. She sat behind her counter in the general store in Willow Creek, Wyoming, and for a full 30 seconds, she did absolutely nothing except breathe. Then she put her forehead down on her folded arms on the counter, and she stayed there, and something moved through her that had no name, or had too many names, or was simply the feeling of 6 years of weightlifting fractionally from a place she hadn't realized she'd been bracing. He was all right. Not because of her. She hadn't saved him. She hadn't even tried to save him in time. But he was all right anyway, and his mother had found the courage she hadn't found. And somehow, in spite of Anna's waiting, the outcome was not the one she had been carrying. She sat up. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. She looked at the letter. The fourth paragraph was different in tone. Margaret Hollis wrote that the review had been initiated not because Anna was under suspicion, but because the board was updating its welfare protocols and wished to document cases where teachers had been aware of potential concerns. That Anna's previous statement of observation in a record from 1886 that Anna hadn't even known existed had been noted as accurate and timely. Timely, Anna thought. The word landed strangely. The fifth paragraph was the one that changed everything. It has come to the board's attention that you left teaching following this period. Given the information now available, and given the documentation of your attentiveness. During this case, the board wishes to formally extend an offer to reinstate your certification and teaching position should you wish to resume your career in education at any time. She read the fifth paragraph twice. Then she folded the letter, put it in her apron pocket, and stood up. She had 3 hours until the store closed. She worked all 3 of them. She did not think about the letter while she worked. She served customers, and managed accounts, and swept the floor, and reorganized the coffee tins that had gotten out of order. She did the things of her day with the efficiency of a woman who has learned that movement is sometimes the only thing that holds the larger feelings at bay long enough to function. But on the wagon ride back up the mountain that evening, with the afternoon light going gold and cold across the high country, she let herself feel it, not just the relief. That was there, enormous and slightly dizzying, the relief of finding out that the worst thing had not happened. But under the relief was something else, something more complicated. 6 years of guilt had become part of how she understood herself. She was the woman who waited too long. She was the woman who had made herself small and quiet in penance for a failure that had haunted her. That identity, the careful guilt of it, had been, she understood now, a kind of hiding. And now it was being asked to step aside. She wasn't sure she knew who she was without it. She was still thinking about this when she got to the cabin and found chaos. Not the dangerous kind, but chaos nonetheless. Lily was standing on the kitchen table. She was not supposed to be standing on the kitchen table, and she was clearly aware of this, because when Anna came through the door, she immediately made the face of a child caught in the middle of something reasonable that looks unreasonable from the outside. "There's a spider," Lily said with great dignity from the kitchen table. "A spider," Anna said. "A large one." "Where is it?" "It was on the floor. Then I got up here. I don't know where it went." From behind the cabin, the sound of an axe on wood stopped. Heavy boots on the step. The door opened, and Caleb came in, took one look at his daughter standing on the table, and said, "What are you doing?" "Spider," Lily said. Caleb looked at the floor, then at the ceiling, then at Anna. Anna looked back at him. "I'll find the spider," Caleb said with the specific solemnity of a man choosing his battles. "You get off the table." "Find it first," Lily said. "Lily, find it first, and then I'll get off the table." He found the spider. It was, Anna noted, genuinely large. He caught it in a cup and put it outside, which was the kind of detail she was beginning to understand about Caleb Hart. He would not kill things he didn't need to kill. He took care with living things, even the ones that other people just wanted gone. Lily got off the table with great ceremony and said thank you, and went to wash her hands, and Anna stood in the kitchen and felt the ordinary, impossible relief of a normal evening. She told them both about the letter after supper. She read the relevant parts aloud. She did not perform composure this time. Her voice shook slightly on the part about Thomas Briggs being all right, and she let it shake, and she kept reading. When she finished, the cabin was quiet. Lily was looking at her with those dark, measuring eyes. "So the boy is okay," Lily said. "Yes," Anna said. "But you didn't know that for 6 years." "No." Lily thought about this with the seriousness she gave to most things. "That must have been very heavy," she said. Anna looked at this child who had been carrying her own heavy things since October, and felt something in her chest fold quietly and gently in on itself. "It was," she said. "And now?" Lily asked. "Now it's lighter," Anna said. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied. "Good," she said. Then she picked up her book and read by the fire, as if the matter were settled, which in Lily's way of seeing things, it apparently was. Caleb waited until Lily was in bed. Then he sat down across from Anna and said, "They want you to go back to teaching." "They're offering me the option," she said. "It's different." "Will you?" She looked at the fire. "I don't know. I'm here for—" She stopped. "We have an arrangement." "The arrangement doesn't mean you can't have a life," he said. "I know that." She was quiet for a moment. "I don't know what I want. I've spent 6 years not letting myself want things. It turns out that's a difficult habit to break." Howe was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You could teach here, in Willow Creek. The schoolhouse needs a teacher. Henderson quit in September, and they haven't replaced him." She looked at him. "I heard it at the feed store last week," he said. "I didn't mention it because it wasn't my place." He stopped. "But it is now, I think. Since we're—" He gestured vaguely at the space between them, the word for what they were still unfinished. "Since we're what?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Since we're doing this together," he said. It was a small sentence. 3 words that could have meant the practical arrangement they'd agreed to. But in his mouth with his eyes, it meant something else. Something more deliberate. Something that had been decided in the past few weeks without being spoken one morning and one supper and one honest conversation at a time. Anna looked at him for a moment. "All right," she said. "I'll look into it." And Caleb nodded and looked at the fire, and Anna looked at the fire, and neither of them said what was sitting plainly in the room with them, because they were both people who had learned caution the hard way. But it was there. It was very much there. The first hard snow came in December, and it came like it meant to stay. 3 days of heavy fall. The mountain closing itself off from the valley below, the road to town, becoming a suggestion, and then a memory. Caleb had planned for it. The supplies were in the wood, was stacked. The cabin was tight, but the confinement changed the texture of everything. 3 people in a small space with no escape route have to decide what to do with each other. For the first day, it was fine. Lily read and quizzed Anna on the contents of the book, which was a natural history of North American birds, and Caleb spent the morning repairing harness leather and the afternoon carving, and Anna worked on accounts from the store, and the snow came down outside, and the fire went in the hearth, and it was genuinely almost peaceful. The second day was when the tension arrived. It came in the form of a question, Lily asked at breakfast, direct and clear, and slightly devastating in the way that children's questions are when they haven't yet learned to protect other people from their own curiosity. "When the year is up," Lily said, addressing her eggs, "what happens to Anna?" The table went quiet. "The year," Anna said carefully. Lily looked up. "You got married so I could come here. The man at the judge's office said something to my father about a review in a year. I heard him." She looked at them both. "So when the year is up, what happens?" Caleb put down his fork. Anna looked at him. He looked at her. Neither of them had said the word arrangement in front of Lily. Neither of them had explained the terms. They had been living the life not naming it, and now a 7-year-old with very good ears and an extremely functional brain had walked straight through the middle of it. "That's a grown-up question," Caleb said. "You said that last time," Lily said, "and it turned out to be a thing that affected me directly." She was not wrong. Caleb looked at Anna with the expression of a man requesting assistance. Anna looked at Lily. "When your father and I made this arrangement," she said carefully, "we agreed to a year together to make sure you had a stable home. After that, what happens next is something we haven't decided yet." "Why haven't you decided?" Lily asked. "Because some things take time to figure out," Anna said. Lily studied her. "Do you want to leave?" "No," Anna said. It came out without hesitation, and she heard herself say it with a kind of clarity that surprised her. "I don't want to leave." Lily turned to Caleb. "Do you want her to leave?" Caleb looked at Anna. "No," he said. Lily looked between them with the expression she sometimes wore when adults were being unnecessarily complicated about things that seemed obvious to her. "Then what's the problem?" she said. The silence that followed had layers in it. "It's not quite that simple," Anna said. "Why not?" Because Anna stopped. She looked at Caleb. He looked back at her. And in that look between the two of them above the head of a 7-year-old, who was watching them with patient and incisive attention, something passed that was too large and too honest and too terrifying to immediately put into words. "Eat your eggs," Caleb said finally. Lily sighed and ate her eggs. But she watched them both for the rest of the morning with the look of a child who is piecing together a puzzle and has just found two pieces that fit, but which the adults have left face down on the table. The third day of the snowstorm was when it broke open. It started because of the letters. Caleb had taken them out of the cabinet, the letters from Lily's mother, and he was sitting at the table with them, reading through them slowly, with the expression of a man doing something that hurts, but that he has decided is necessary. Lily came in from her room, saw them, and stopped. "You're reading them," she said. "Yes," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she came and sat down beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. Close enough that her shoulder was almost touching his arm. "Can you tell me what they say?" she asked. "Not read them to me, just tell me." He looked at her. He looked at the letters. He looked at this daughter who was not asking him for much, just the truth, translated into something she could carry. "She said she never blamed me," he said slowly, "for leaving. She said she understood even when she didn't like it. She said—" He stopped, turned the page over in his hands. "She said she hoped I'd find my way back to people before it was too late, because she thought I had more good in me than I knew." He was quiet. "She wrote that before she knew she was sick." Lily was looking at the letter, not at his face. "Did she write about me?" Lily asked. "Yes," he said. "What did she say?" He found the right letter. He read it silently first. Then he set it on the table between them and pointed to a paragraph. "Read this part," he said. "Out loud if you want." Lily looked at him. He nodded. She read it. Anna from across the room could not see the words. But she watched Lily's face as she read, watched the careful control in it, the absolute refusal to break the 7-year-old stubbornness that kept her chin level, even as her eyes went bright and wet. When she finished, she didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said she was proud of me. "Yes," Caleb said. "She said it before she died. She said she was proud of who I was going to become." "Yes." Lily pressed the back of her hand to her mouth. Just for a moment. Then she lowered it and breathed and set her chin back up. "Okay," she said. Her voice was very small. "Okay." Caleb did something then that Anna would remember for the rest of her life. I didn't say anything. He didn't reach for her, didn't force comfort she might not want. He just turned his hand over on the table, palm up, and left it there. An offering, not a demand. Lily looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she put her small hand in his large, scarred one. And Caleb Hart, the most feared man in the territory, sat at his kitchen table in the middle of a snowstorm with his daughter's hand in his and said absolutely nothing. And Anna turned away and looked at the wall because some moments are not meant to be witnessed directly. The crisis came on the 4th day, and it came fast. Anna woke at 3 in the morning to the sound of coughing, not the mild cough of a child with a cold. The deep, rattling working cough that means the body is fighting something serious. She was on her feet before she was fully awake. Lily's room. Lily sitting up in bed, coughing with her whole body, her face hot when Anna pressed her palm to her forehead. Hot in the way that meant fever. Real fever, the kind that has been building for hours. "How long have you been coughing?" Anna said. "A while." Lily managed between coughs. "Why didn't you call for us?" Lily looked at her with genuinely baffled 7-year-old logic. "I didn't want to wake anyone up." Anna went and woke Caleb immediately. He was up in seconds, and he was in Lily's doorway in 3 more, and she watched his face go through the full range of a father's terror in about 4 seconds flat before he locked it down and went practical. "How high is the fever?" he said. "High," Anna said. "I need cold water and clean cloth, everything you have for medicine." He moved. She didn't need to say it twice. She stayed with Lily, keeping her upright because lying flat made the coughing worse, talking to her in a low, steady voice about nothing in particular, about the birds in Lily's natural history book, about the names for different kinds of snow that she'd learned from a trapper who came through the store last winter, about anything and everything that wasn't the sound of the cough getting worse. Caleb came back with water and cloth and a small medicine kit, better stocked than she'd expected because he was a man who prepared for things. They worked together in Lily's room through the rest of the dark hours, without needing to discuss what to do. He held her up. Anna managed the fever. They traded off when one or the other needed to do something else, and they didn't talk much except functionally, the way two people work together when the task is urgent and there's no room for anything but the task. At some point in the early morning, Lily fell into a fitful sleep. Anna and Caleb sat on either side of her bed and watched her breathe. "She needs a doctor," Anna said quietly. "I know," Caleb said. "The road to town." "I know," he said again. She looked at him. He was looking at Lily. His expression was the one she'd come to recognize as his most honest face, stripped of the mountain man's careful blankness, stripped of the reputation, just a man afraid for someone he loved and not trying to hide it anymore. "I'll go at first light," he said. "The road's hard but passable if I go on horseback. I can be to town and back with the doctor in 6 hours if everything holds." "That's 6 hours in that cold," Anna said. "I've been in worse." He looked at her. "Will you be all right here?" "Yes," she said immediately. "She might get worse before I get back." "I know that," Anna said. "I'll manage. Go." He held her gaze for a moment. Then he nodded. He leaned down over Lily and pressed the back of his hand very gently to her forehead, the way Anna had done. And then he did something that stopped Anna's breath entirely. He leaned down and pressed his lips to the top of his daughter's head very quietly, in the way of a man performing an act that has become natural, so gradually he almost didn't notice when it happened. Then he stood up and looked at Anna. "Keep her fever down," he said. "Go," she said. He left. Anna sat beside Lily in the early gray light and listened to the wind and the sound of a horse being taken out in the dark, and she pressed cold cloths to Lily's face and spoke to her quietly when she stirred, and she thought about what she had said to Caleb weeks ago, about standing still and waiting for a better moment that never came. She was not standing still now. She was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what needed to be done. Lily opened her eyes around mid-morning and looked at Anna with the cloudy focus of a child who is sick enough that the edges of things have gone soft. "Where is he?" she said. "He went for the doctor," Anna said. Lily processed this. "In the snow." "Yes." She was quiet. Another rattling cough moved through her, and Anna held her through it. When it passed, Lily said, "He went in the snow for me." "Yes," Anna said. Lily looked at the window. The light through it was white and flat, snow-light winter light. "He said he wouldn't leave," she said. "He didn't," Anna said. "He went to get help. That's different." Lily thought about this. "Is it?" "Yes," Anna said firmly. "Leaving means not coming back. He's coming back." Lily looked at her. "How do you know?" Anna looked at this sick, burning, relentlessly precise child. "Because he has something to come back to now," she said. "He knows that. He didn't always know it, but he does now." Lily seemed to weigh this. Then, with the absolute exhaustion of someone who has used up their available strength on getting through the night, she said, "Stay with me." "I'm not going anywhere," Anna said. Lily leaned into her, and Anna wrapped an arm around this child who was not her daughter, and who had become the most important person in her life in the space of 6 weeks, and she held her, and the fire burned in the hearth, and outside the snow came down, and somewhere on the mountain road in the cold and the white, Caleb Hart rode toward town to bring help home. He made it there and back in 5 hours and 40 minutes. Anna heard the horse before she saw him, and she was at the door when he came in, and behind him was Dr. Harlan, the town physician, red-faced from cold, and carrying his bag. Caleb looked at Anna first. "She's the same?" Anna said. "Fever's down slightly. She's been sleeping." He exhaled, one long breath of pure relief. Then he looked at the door to Lily's room, and he straightened up, and he walked through it, and Anna heard him say very quietly, in the voice he used for the important things, "Lily, I'm back." And Anna heard muffled through the door, thick with sleep and fever, and something that was working its way toward trust. Lily's voice saying, "I know, Anna said you would be." Dr. Harlan was thorough and competent, and concluded after 20 minutes that Lily had a serious chest cold that wanted 2 weeks of rest willow bark, hot broth, and someone sensible to manage it. He looked at Anna when he said someone sensible, and she understood what he meant. After the doctor left, Caleb came and found her in the kitchen where she was heating the first round of broth. He stood in the doorway, and he looked at her, and he said, "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me for this," she said. "Yes, I do." His voice was very rough. "You stayed with her all day in this cabin alone, and you held her through it, and you told her I was coming back." He stopped. "She believed you." "I told her the truth," Anna said. "I know." He was quiet. "I know you did." She looked at him across the kitchen. This man who had ridden 5 hours through a mountain snowstorm for his daughter. This man who pressed a kiss to a child's head with the quiet naturalness of something that had grown in him slowly and taken hold. "Caleb," she said. "Yeah," he said. "She called you something when you came back in," Anna said. "When you said your name. She called you. Did you hear what she called you?" He went very still. "I heard it," he said. His voice had changed entirely. It was the voice of a man standing somewhere he had not expected to be allowed to stand. "She called you Dad," Anna said. He put one hand on the doorframe. He looked at the floor for a moment. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. He didn't bother pretending otherwise. "Yeah," he said. "She did." Anna looked at him. "You rode 5 hours in a blizzard for her," she said quietly. She noticed. "She shouldn't have had to notice," he said. It should just be what a father does." "It is," Anna said. "That's exactly what it is." He stood there for a moment longer, holding the doorframe. A large man made entirely humble by a small word from a small girl. Then he said very quietly, "Anna." "Yes," she said. He looked at her with the directness that was one of the truest things about him, the directness that had no performance in it. "I need to tell you something," he said. She waited. "This isn't an arrangement anymore," he said. "I'm aware we agreed to a year. I'm aware that was the terms. But I need you to know that it hasn't been an arrangement for me for a while now, and I think you should know that whatever you decide to do with it." The broth was simmering behind her. The fire was going. The snow was coming down outside. Anna looked at Caleb Hart. She thought about a woman who had made herself small for 6 years. She thought about a general store in a small town and supper eaten alone, and the feeling of a life that was safe but not alive. She thought about a letter from Colorado Springs and the relief of finding out that the worst had not happened. She thought about a boy in the snow outside a schoolhouse and the promise she had made to herself. She thought, "I came here to save a child." And somewhere along the way, I stopped hiding. She said, "I know." He waited. "It hasn't been an arrangement for me either," she said. "Not for a while." The kitchen was very quiet. "Okay," Caleb said. "Okay," Anna said. Neither of them moved. Neither of them reached for the other. They were both people who moved carefully, who had learned that the things worth having were worth approaching slowly. But something in the room had shifted permanently, the way the light shifts after a storm, when the clouds break and the whole world looks washed clean and slightly new. From behind Lily's door came a small voice. "Is the broth ready?" Lily called. "I'm hungry." Caleb and Anna looked at each other, and this time what crossed his face was unmistakable. It was a smile. A full one, unguarded the face of a man who has stopped bracing for the good thing to be taken away. "Broth's almost ready," Anna called back. "Good," said Lily. "And can someone bring more blankets? And also—" A pause. The pause of a child gathering courage for something that matters. "Can you both come? I don't want to be alone right now." Caleb looked at Anna. Anna looked at Caleb. She picked up the broth. He took the blankets from the chest by the wall, and they walked together through the door to where their daughter was waiting. Lily recovered slowly, the way children do when the illness has truly dug in, Not all at once, but in degrees. One better morning followed by a harder afternoon. Then 2 good days in a row, then a small setback that made both Caleb and Anna hold their breath before things steadied again. For 2 weeks, the 3 of them barely left the cabin. And those 2 weeks did something to them that no amount of ordinary days could have managed, because ordinary days allow people to maintain a certain careful distance from each other. Illness doesn't allow that. Illness strips everything down to what's actual, and what was actual in that cabin during those 2 weeks was 3 people who had stopped pretending they were anything other than what they had become. A family. Not the kind anyone had planned. Not the kind that looked like the pictures in a catalog, but real in the specific and irreducible way that only things earned through difficulty become real. Caleb woke at night when Lily coughed. Not because Anna asked him to. Not because it was his turn. Because the sound reached something in him that was now permanently awake where his daughter was concerned, and he could not go to her the way you can't not catch something falling. Anna taught Lily arithmetic and reading from the books they had between them, and Lily was a difficult and rewarding student. She asked better questions than she was supposed to be able to ask, pushed back when something didn't make sense, and retained everything she was told with an accuracy that was slightly unnerving. "You would have been my best student," Anna told her one afternoon. Lily looked up from the page. "Would have been," "would be," Anna corrected. "Are." Lily accepted this with a small nod. Then, "Are you going to teach at the school in town?" Anna paused. She hadn't made the decision yet, not officially, though she'd been thinking about it every day. "I'm considering it." "You should," Lily said with the directness she'd inherited from Caleb and the certainty she'd inherited from her mother. "You're good at explaining things without making people feel stupid for not already knowing them." Anna looked at this child. "That's the best thing anyone has said to me about my teaching," she said. Lily shrugged and went back to her page. "It's just true." It was Caleb who brought it up to Anna that same night after Lily was asleep, almost as if they'd been talking about the same thing separately and had finally gotten to it at the same moment. "You should take the school position," he said. "You've decided that?" she asked. "No, you've decided it. I'm just saying it out loud for you." She looked at him. He was right. She had decided it. She just hadn't said it. "I'll write to Margaret Hollis next week," she said, "and I'll speak to the town board. I'll drive you in," he said. "Tuesday if the road's clear." She looked at him across the table. This man who 6 weeks ago had burst through her door with terrified eyes and shaking hands. This man who now made coffee before she woke and drove to town in blizzards and caught falling things before they hit the ground. "Caleb," she said. He looked at her. "When was the last time someone took care of you?" she asked. The question seemed to land somewhere unexpected. She watched him absorb it, watched the careful shift of his expression. "I don't—" He stopped, started again. "That's not something I think about much." "I know," she said. "I'm asking you to start." He was quiet for a long moment. "The mining collapse," he said finally. "After I came out, there was a woman, one of the other miners' wives, who made sure I ate something every day for the first week. I didn't want to. She didn't ask whether I wanted to." He looked at the table. "I've thought about her a lot over the years, whether she knew what she was doing." "She knew," Anna said. He looked up. "Women always know," Anna said. "We just don't always do it." She looked at him steadily. "I'm telling you now. You're allowed to be taken care of. You're allowed to need things. That's not weakness. That's just being a person." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then very quietly, "This is a strange marriage, Anna." "Yes," she agreed. "Strange, but—" He stopped. "But," she said. He looked at her with that full directness, the unperformed kind. "But I wouldn't trade it," he said. "Not for anything I had before." She looked at him. "Neither would I," she said. And that was that. Not a declaration, not a scene, not the kind of moment that gets written about. Just 2 people at a kitchen table at the end of a hard day, telling each other something true. The judge arrived in the 3rd week of January. His name was Judge Warren Aldis, and he came from Cheyenne on official business, which was the review of Lily's custody arrangement at the 30-day mark. Not the final review. He was careful to clarify, but a preliminary inspection standard procedure to ensure that the child's situation was what it had been represented to be. Anna heard his wagon coming and stood up from the table and looked at Caleb. He was already on his feet. "How do we look?" he said. It was the wrong question, and she could see he knew it was the wrong question, even as he asked it. He was scared. This was the man who had handed her his daughter's whole future in a general store, and now he was scared in the way that good parents are scared not for himself, but for the person he was responsible for. "We look like what we are," Anna said. "Stop performing and just be here." He nodded once, settled. Lily came out of her room when she heard the wagon looked at both of them and correctly identified the situation. "Is this the judge?" she said. "Yes," Caleb said. She straightened her dress with the brisk efficiency of someone who had decided to take this seriously. "I'll be good," she said. "You don't have to be good," Anna said. "Just be yourself." Lily looked at her. "What if myself isn't enough?" Anna crouched down so they were eye to eye. "You are more than enough," she said. "You have always been more than enough. Don't let anyone in a good coat make you forget that." Something in Lily's face settled. She nodded. Judge Aldis was a tall man with a careful face and the practiced neutrality of someone who had made difficult decisions about children's lives long enough that he had learned not to show what he was thinking. He came in, accepted coffee, looked around the cabin with eyes that were taking inventory without appearing to. He interviewed Anna first in the main room, while Caleb took Lily outside briefly to check on the horses, a transparent excuse to give Anna privacy, which Anna appreciated. The judge asked about the marriage, about the arrangement, about her background, her previous career, her reasons for agreeing to this. She answered every question directly. She did not dress anything up. She said she had married Caleb on short notice because a child needed a home and she was in a position to help provide one. She said she had not expected to find what she'd found. She said that what existed in this cabin now was not what had been agreed to in a Justice of the Peace's back room 6 weeks ago. "And what exists now?" the judge asked. She looked at him evenly. "A family," she said. "A real one. The kind that gets built from difficult days and honest conversations. Not the kind that arrives ready-made." Judge Aldis wrote something in his notebook. He interviewed Caleb next inside, while Anna sat with Lily at the table doing arithmetic, which was both actually useful and an effective way of keeping Lily occupied. She could hear the low murmur of their voices from the other room, but not the words. She focused on Lily's arithmetic. 7 times 8, she said. 56, Lily said immediately without looking up from her slate. Then, "What do you think they're talking about?" "Math," Anna said. Lily gave her a look. "Work your problems," Anna said. Lily worked her problems. But her pencil moved more slowly than usual, and her eyes kept drifting to the door. "Anna," she said. "Yes. What if he decides I can't stay?" Anna put her hand over Lily's on the table. "He's going to decide you can stay," she said. "How do you know?" "Because he's looking at all the right things," she said. "And all the right things are here." Lily pressed her lips together, looked at their hands. "But if he doesn't," she said. "If somehow he doesn't, what happens to us to you and—" She stopped, and Anna understood that she meant Caleb, and also that Lily was aware that what happened to this family extended beyond just her own custody. "Whatever happens," Anna said, "I'm not going anywhere. Do you understand that that part doesn't depend on the judge?" Lily searched her face. "Promise," she said. And Anna, who had been very careful with promises since Colorado, said promise. When the judge interviewed Lily, he did it alone in her room, which was standard. Anna and Caleb sat at the kitchen table, and neither of them spoke. The clock on the wall ticked. Caleb's hand was flat on the table. Anna could see the tension in it, the slight whitening at the knuckles. She reached over and put her hand over his. He turned his hand over and held hers. They sat like that, not talking, while the clock ticked and the wind pressed against the cabin walls. It was the longest 12 minutes Anna had ever sat through. When the judge came back out, his face was still carefully neutral, and Anna's grip on Caleb's hand tightened without her deciding to. Judge Aldous sat down across from them. He looked at them both. Then he put his notebook down on the table. "In 30 years of this work," he said, "I have walked into a great many homes claiming to be something they were not." He paused. "This is not one of those homes." Caleb exhaled next to her, a sound like something coming back from very far away. "I'll be returning for the final review in June," the judge continued. "At that time, if the situation remains as I've observed it today, I see no reason why permanent custody would not be granted." He looked at Caleb directly. "Mr. Hart, that child in there has a great deal of grief still ahead of her. She lost her mother, and she is still very much in the middle of finding out what that means. Do not mistake a good week for a finished journey." "No, sir," Caleb said. "She's going to need more from you on the difficult days than on the easy ones," the judge said, "and the difficult ones will come." "I know that," Caleb said. "Good." The judge looked at Anna. "Mrs. Hart, the girl clearly trusts you." He paused on that word Mrs. Hart, as if testing it, as if he'd noticed something about it. "That kind of trust is not manufactured. It's earned." He stood up. "I'll see myself out." He was gone in 5 minutes. The cabin door closed behind him, and the sound of his wagon leaving was the best sound Anna had heard in weeks. Lily appeared in the doorway of her room. She looked at both of them. "Well," she said. "Well," Caleb said, and his voice was rough in a way that gave everything away. "You're staying." Lily's chin came up, and her jaw went tight, and her eyes went bright, and she stood in that doorway doing the thing she always did, not breaking, not falling apart, just absorbing the thing, taking it into herself, deciding what to do with it. Then she crossed the room, and she put her arms around Caleb's waist and pressed her face against his chest, and she held on. He wrapped his arms around her slowly, like a man who still found it slightly miraculous that he was allowed to do this, and he held her, and over the top of her head he looked at Anna, and what was in his face had no name that was adequate to it. Anna pressed her hand flat against her own chest and looked at the wall. "Okay," Lily said into Caleb's shirt. "Okay." She stayed there for a full minute. Then she pulled back and straightened up and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and said with complete composure, "Can we have something good for supper? I'm tired of broth." Caleb made a sound that was half laugh and half something else entirely. "Yeah," he said. "We can have something good for supper." It was in the week after the judge's visit that the town began to shift. Not all of it. Towns don't shift all at once. But the people who mattered, the ones who saw clearly and spoke honestly. Those people had been watching the Hart family since November, and what they'd seen had begun to work on them. It started with Doc Harlan, who mentioned to 3 different patients that the Hart woman had managed a serious chest illness in a mountain cabin alone, with nothing but competence and good sense, and that the mountain man had ridden through the worst of the December snow to get help for his daughter without being asked, and that the little girl was one of the most intelligent children he'd met in his 30 years of practice. Doc Harlan was not a gossip. He was a man who believed in correcting the record when the record was wrong. So the record began to correct. Then Lily started school. Anna had taken the teaching position officially in January, and the school board had been so relieved to have a qualified teacher that they had asked almost no questions. She started the second week after the judge's visit with 11 students, aged 6 to 14, in the small schoolhouse at the edge of town. Lily was one of her students. This was, they all acknowledged, slightly unusual. But Lily had made her feelings on the matter plain. She would attend school with Anna, or she would not attend school at all. And she said this with the particular certainty of a child who had learned that the adults in her life meant what they said, so she was going to mean what she said too. Caleb drove them to town in the mornings and picked them up in the afternoons. He did this every day without complaint. And after the first week, the other parents began to notice that the most feared man in the territory tipped his hat to women on the street and helped old Mr. Prentice with his wagon when it got stuck outside the hardware store, and never once raised his voice in a way that frightened anyone. The story the town had told about Caleb Hart was a story about a man. The man they were meeting was different from that story. Stories can change, but they need time and they need evidence. Caleb gave them both. The harder thing came from inside the cabin, and it came from a direction Anna hadn't expected. It was a Sunday afternoon in late January, and Lily was reading, and Caleb was carving, and Anna was at the table writing her lesson plans, and everything was ordinary. And then Caleb put down his carving and said out of nowhere without preamble, "I need to tell you both something." Lily looked up. Anna looked up. He was looking at his hands. "When I came out of the mining collapse," he said, I wasn't right for a long time. In my head. I don't mean crazy. I mean..." He stopped. "I kept seeing the men who didn't come out. I kept waking up thinking I was still underground. I couldn't be in a room with too many people without feeling like the walls were too close." He paused. "I didn't know that was something that had a name, or that other men had it. I just thought I was broken." The cabin was very quiet. "I'm telling you this because..." He looked up and his eyes went to Lily first, which was right, which was exactly right. "Because you should know the whole of who your father is. Not just the parts I'm proud of. You told me on the platform you didn't trust someone who might leave. I want to tell you the reason I left things before. Not because I stopped caring. Because something in me broke in that collapse, and I didn't know how to be near people while I was trying to put it back together, and I handled that the wrong way." Lily looked at him for a long moment. "You handled it by leaving," she said. "Yes," he said. "And that hurt people." "Yes," he said again. "It hurt your mother. And it meant I wasn't there for the first 7 years of your life, and that's not something I can fix, and I'm not asking you to forgive it. I'm asking you to know the truth of why." Lily was quiet. The fire clicked. "Are you still broken?" she asked. Not cruelly, directly. "In some ways," he said. "I think some things don't go back to exactly what they were, but I'm not hiding anymore. That's the part that was making it worse. Staying away and being alone and thinking I was protecting people by keeping my distance." He looked at her. "I wasn't protecting anyone. I was just alone." Lily closed her book. She looked at him for the long, serious moment she gave to things that required her full attention. "My mother's letter said you had more good in you than you knew," she said. "I remember," he said. "I think she was right," Lily said. "I think it took a long time for the good to get loud enough to hear." Something in Caleb's face did something irreversible. "Lily," he said. His voice was very careful, the way you carry something you're afraid of dropping. "I'm not ready to forget what I was angry about," she said. "But I'm ready to not be angry about it anymore at the same time. Is that possible?" "Yes," Anna said from across the table. Both of them looked at her. "That's exactly possible. That's actually what forgiveness is. It's not forgetting. It's deciding the anger doesn't have to live in the front room anymore." Lily considered this. Then she picked her book back up. "Okay," she said. And then, without looking up from the page, in the voice of someone mentioning something factual and ordinary and not at all enormous, "I don't think you should feel guilty anymore, Dad. I think you should just be good from here." The word Dad landed in the room like something holy and unannounced. Caleb sat absolutely still. Anna looked at her lesson plans. Neither of them said a word. Because Lily had already moved on, was already reading, had apparently decided that the most important thing she'd ever said to her father could be delivered and then set aside without ceremony, which was, Anna thought, either the most casual or the most intentional act of mercy she had ever witnessed. Probably both. In the weeks that followed, Caleb came into town more often. He stopped avoiding the places where people gathered. He did not become gregarious. That was not who he was and never would be. But he stopped making himself absent, stopped arriving and leaving before anyone could look at him directly. He was present. And the town, which had been telling a story about a dangerous recluse for years, slowly, reluctantly, and then with increasing conviction, began to tell a different one. The test of it came on a Thursday in February, when 3 men came into the general store. Anna was behind the counter. Lily was at the school where Anna had left her in the care of the older students for the afternoon while she restocked. The 3 men were strangers, travelers from their look. the kind that passed through in the winter, on their way to somewhere that presumably made more sense in the cold. They weren't trouble exactly, but they were the kind of men who pushed at edges to see what gave. The one who spoke first looked around the store, then at Anna, and said something that Anna immediately filed in the category of things she refused to dignify with a direct response. It was the kind of comment that assumed a woman alone in a store was available for a certain kind of conversation. She looked at him with the expression she had developed over years of managing difficult people in small spaces. "Can I help you find something?" she said. "Friendly town," the man said to his companions, ignoring her question. "Friendlier store." The door opened. Caleb walked in. He took in the situation in approximately 2 seconds. He didn't say anything. He walked to the counter, stood beside Anna, and looked at the 3 men with the particular quality of stillness that very large men have when they've decided not to move, but want you to understand that the decision is deliberate. The men looked at him. He looked at them. "You fellas finding everything you need," he said. His voice was perfectly polite. It was the politeness that made it clear that the question was also the last question of that particular kind he intended to ask. The men found what they needed. They purchased it and left quickly and did not push at any edges. When they were gone, Anna stood for a moment with her hands flat on the counter. "I had that handled," she said. "I know you did," Caleb said. "I've been handling things like that for 6 years. I know that too." He looked at her. "I'm not saying you needed me to. I'm saying I'm here now, and I'd rather be here than not when something like that happens." She looked at him. "That's different from thinking I need rescuing," he said. "I know the difference." She studied him. This man who had learned slowly and against considerable internal resistance the difference between protecting and controlling, between being present and being overwhelming, between loving someone and assuming they couldn't manage without you. "Yes," she said. "It is different." He nodded, picked up the bag of supplies he'd come in for, started toward the door. "Caleb," she said. He turned. "Thank you," she said, "for being here." He looked at her for a moment. "Always," he said, and he meant it in all the ways the word could be meant. The letter arrived on a Monday in late February, and it was not from Colorado, and it was not from Judge Aldous, and Anna did not recognize the handwriting on the outside of it. It was addressed to Caleb. She put it on the table when she got home. He picked it up and looked at it, and she watched his face change when he saw the return address. "What is it?" she said. He set it down without opening it. "It's from my brother," he said. Anna went still. "You have a brother," she said. "Had," he said. "I thought." He looked at the envelope. "We haven't spoken in 14 years. What happened?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I was in the mine with me," he said. "He came out. I came out. 3 days later he told me he wished he hadn't." He pressed his lips together. "I didn't know what to do with that. I was barely holding myself together and he was—" He stopped. "I left. I told myself it was because he needed space. But I left because I didn't know how to help him and I couldn't stand watching him suffer, and I was a coward." Anna looked at him. "You were broken," she said. "Same thing," he said. "No," she said. "It isn't. Broken people make broken decisions. That's what broken means. It doesn't make them cowards. It makes them people who needed help they didn't know how to ask for." He looked at the envelope. "He might be writing to tell me he hates me," he said. "He might be," Anna agreed. "Or he might be writing because 14 years is long enough." "He might be writing that too," she said. He picked up the envelope. He opened it. She watched him read it. Watched his face, which was doing things she hadn't seen it do before, moving through expressions too quickly to track, not performing any of them, just genuinely moving through them, the way a man does when something he'd given up on walks back through the door. When he finished, he set the letter down. "He has a daughter," Caleb said. "My brother. She's 9. Her mother died last year." Anna felt the shape of the story before he told her the rest of it. "He's been alone with her since September," Caleb said. He heard about me, about Lily, about—" He stopped. He says he's been trying to get right for years, and he doesn't know if he's there yet, but he wants to try to find out. He looked at the letter. He wants to bring his daughter and come see us. The kitchen was very quiet. What do you want? Anna asked. He looked at her. I want to say yes, he said. I'm terrified to say yes. Those things can both be true, she said. He was quiet. From Lily's room came the sound of a page turning. She'd have a cousin, he said, if it works. She would, Anna said. He looked at the letter, then at the door to Lily's room, then at Anna. She's going to ask me questions I don't have answers to yet, he said, about why I've never mentioned a brother. Yes, Anna said, she will. I'm going to have to tell her the truth. Yes, she said again. You are. He picked up the letter. I'm going to write him back, he said. Good, Anna said. He sat down at the table, and he reached for paper, and he held the pen for a moment, not writing, just thinking with the expression of a man who has spent 14 years on one side of a door, and is only now understanding that he was always the one with his hand on the knob. Lily came out of her room. She took one look at the scene, Caleb at the table with paper and pen, Anna standing nearby with the careful, watchful expression she wore when something important was happening, and said, What is it this time? Caleb looked at her. Come sit down, he said. I need to tell you something. She came and sat down. She looked at the letter on the table. She looked at him. Is it bad? She said. I don't know yet, he said honestly. It might be good. I haven't decided how I feel about it yet. Tell me, she said. And he did. He told her about his brother and the mine and the 14 years of silence and the letter, and Lily listened with the focused attention she gave to everything that mattered, and when he finished, she sat with it for a moment, the way she sat with things, turning it over, examining it. He has a daughter my age, she said. Close to it, 9, and she lost her mother too. Yes. Lily looked at the table. She must be very lonely, she said. Caleb looked at his daughter. Yeah, he said quietly. She probably is. Lily looked up at him. Write him back, she said. Tell him to come. She paused. Tell him to bring her. Caleb held her gaze. You sure? He said. I know what it's like, Lily said simply, to get on a train, not knowing if anyone on the other end is going to be worth trusting. She looked at her father with those clear, dark eyes. I think maybe we should be worth trusting. For her. Caleb put his hand over Lily's on the table. He looked at Anna. Anna looked at them both, this man and this girl, this improbable, hard-won, entirely real family, and felt something in her chest that she had no adequate word for in any language she knew. Write the letter, she said. He wrote it. All three of them were still at the table when he finished. Lily had fallen asleep with her head on her arms halfway through the second draft, and Caleb had put his coat over her shoulders without stopping writing, and Anna had lit the extra lamp when the light got low, and none of them had said to leave or to stay. They were just there, together. In the cabin that had once been the loneliest place in the territory. Daniel Hart's letter arrived 2 weeks after Caleb sent his reply, and it said he was coming in March. He wrote that he'd been living in a town called Redfield, 2 days east by train, working as a blacksmith, which Caleb read and said nothing about for a long moment, before Anna understood that the silence meant something, that there was history in that detail, something about who Daniel had been before the mine and who he'd become after it, that Caleb was still working out how to hold. How was going to be the teacher, Caleb said finally. Before, he was the one in the family who read books. And now he's a blacksmith, Anna said. Now he's a blacksmith. He folded the letter. People become what they can survive being, he said. Not always what they planned. She thought about a general store in Willow Creek, about a woman who had made herself small enough to fit inside a quiet life and called it safety. No, she said. Not always what they planned. Lily took the news of Daniel's arrival with the focused practicality she applied to most new information. She asked how old he was, what he looked like, whether he was as big as Caleb, and whether his daughter liked animals. Caleb answered what he could and admitted what he didn't know. which Anna noted was something he did more naturally now than he had 6 weeks ago. He had stopped pretending to certainty he didn't have. It was one of the things she had watched change in him quietly, and without announcement, the way the real changes always happened. "What's her name?" Lily asked. "The daughter." "Rose," Caleb said. Lily said the name once, testing it. Then she went to her room and came back with a piece of paper and a pencil and sat down at the table. "What are you doing?" Anna asked. "Making a list," Lily said, "of things she might need to know when she gets here, so she doesn't have to figure everything out alone." Caleb looked at Anna over Lily's bent head. Anna looked back at him. Neither of them said anything. Because what was there to say about a 7-year-old who had stepped off a train 4 months ago with one braid undone and a carpet bag she carried as proof she could leave, and who was now making a welcome list for a girl she'd never met, because she remembered what it cost to arrive somewhere not knowing if you were wanted. Some things don't need to be said. They just need to be witnessed. March came in hard, the way Wyoming. March always does, cold and contrary, and refusing to commit to anything. And Daniel Hart arrived on a Tuesday afternoon on the eastbound train with a 9-year-old girl who had her father's dark eyes and her dead mother's cautious mouth, and who held her father's hand on the platform with the grip of someone who has recently learned that the world is not as solid as it looks. Caleb and Anna were on the platform. Lily was between them. Anna saw Caleb see his brother and go completely still. 14 years. That's what 14 years of silence looked like. 2 men standing 30 feet apart on a train platform in Wyoming. Neither of them moving, both of them doing the arithmetic of all the days that had passed, all the words that hadn't been said, all the versions of themselves they had become in the other's absence. Daniel was shorter than Caleb, leaner, with lines in his face that told the story of a man who had carried something heavy for a very long time. He looked at his brother, and his jaw worked, and he didn't say anything. Caleb took 3 steps forward. Daniel took 3 steps forward. They stopped 2 feet apart. "You look old," Daniel said. "You look terrible," Caleb said. And then they put their arms around each other, in the way that men who don't know how to be tender sometimes manage it anyway, when the need is great enough, briefly, fiercely saying nothing, which said everything. Lily watched this with great interest. Rose watched it from behind her father's leg. When they broke apart, Caleb looked at Rose, and something in his face went gentle in the specific way it went gentle with Lily. That particular expression he had developed in the last 4 months. The one that meant, here is someone I am responsible for, and I will not get this wrong. He crouched down. "You must be Rose," he said. Rose looked at him with those dark eyes, said nothing. "I'm your Uncle Caleb," he said. "I know that doesn't mean much yet. It will if you give it time." Rose looked past him at Lily. Lily stepped forward without being asked. "I'm Lily," she said. "I got here in November. It was scary at first." She paused. "It gets better." Rose looked at her. "Promise," Rose said. "Yes," Lily said. It was Anna's word in Lily's mouth, the same weight, the same certainty, the same understanding of what it costs to make one, and what it means to keep one. Rose let go of her father's hand, and the 2 girls walked ahead of the adults toward the wagon, already talking in the low, rapid way of children who have recognized something in each other, and Anna stood on the platform watching them and felt the shape of what this day was. The beginning of something that would take years to fully become. The best things always did. The first evening with Daniel in the cabin was careful and slightly awkward in the way of people who know each other's history but not each other's present. They ate supper and talked about practical things, the train journey, the weather, the blacksmithing work in Redfield, and the girls ate quickly and disappeared into Lily's room, and the sound of their voices came through the closed door like a piece of music played in another room, present but not intrusive. After supper, Lily's door opened. She came out and went straight to the cabinet above the fireplace and took down the fox. The carved fox. The first one, the one she'd looked at on her very first day, and said, "It's good," in the voice of someone handing over something precious without fully realizing it. She brought it to the door of her room. "Rose needs one," she said to Caleb. "Can you make her one?" Caleb looked at the fox in his daughter's hands. "What kind does she want?" he asked. Lily looked back into the room. "A consultation. Then, a horse." "I can do that," he said. Lily nodded and went back in and closed the door. Daniel had watched the whole exchange. He looked at his brother. "She calls you Dad," he said. "Started in December," Caleb said. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "She's something, Caleb." "Yes," Caleb said. "She is." Anna cleared the supper dishes and listened to the two brothers find each other again, word by word, the way you navigate a room after a very long time in the dark, carefully feeling for the furniture, trusting that the room is still the shape you remember. It was late when Daniel finally said it. He said it quietly, in the voice of a man who has been carrying a thing for a very long time, and has finally decided that the weight of holding it is greater than the risk of setting it down. "I should have written sooner," he said. "I almost did, 100 times." Caleb looked at him. "Why didn't you?" "Because I was ashamed," Daniel said, "of what I said, after the mine, about wishing I hadn't come out." He looked at his hands on the table. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I was so deep inside it that I couldn't see outside it. But I said it to you, and then you left, and I thought—" He stopped. "I thought you left because you believed me, that I wasn't worth staying for." Caleb was very still. "I left," he said slowly, "because I didn't know how to help you, and I was too broken to ask anyone else, and I've been ashamed of that every day for 14 years. The brothers looked at each other across the table. "We were both idiots," Daniel said. "Yes," Caleb agreed. "We wasted 14 years. Yes." "We're not wasting any more," Daniel said. It was not a question. "No," Caleb said. "We're not." Anna stood at the kitchen counter and looked at the wall and thought about all the time people wasted being ashamed of the wrong things, protecting themselves from the wrong dangers, standing outside the rooms where their lives were actually happening. She thought, we're all here now. That's what matters. We're all here now. The week with Daniel and Rose changed the shape of everything. It changed it not dramatically, but incrementally, the way most real change happens. One small thing accumulating on top of another until the pile is tall enough to see over. Rose was quieter than Lily, but not by nature, by circumstance, by the particular silence of a child who had recently lost the person who best understood her. Lily understood this without being told. She did not try to fill Rose's silences the way other children might. She simply stayed nearby, which was, Anna thought, exactly the right instinct and more emotional intelligence than most adults possessed. By the third day, Rose was talking. By the fourth, she was laughing. On the fifth morning, Anna came into the main room to find both girls at the table, with Lily's natural history book open between them, arguing with considerable passion about whether eagles or hawks were superior. And she stood in the doorway and felt something so simple and so enormous that she had to grip the doorframe. This was what she had come to the mountains for. This. Not the arrangement, not the store, not the careful, quiet life she had been living. This room, these voices, this argument about birds at a kitchen table on a March morning. Caleb came in from outside, heard the argument, looked at Anna in the doorway and stopped. He looked at the girls, then at her. She looked back at him. And in that look, without words, they said everything that had been building since November, everything that had grown in the space between two people who had both been broken in their own ways and had chosen one day at a time to be present for something instead. He crossed the room to her. He stood beside her in the doorway. "Anna," he said. "Yes," she said. "I need to ask you something," he said. "All right," she said. Howe was quiet for a moment. Not uncertain, she knew his silences well enough now to know the difference between the silence of a man who didn't know what to say and the silence of a man choosing exactly the right words. "The year is up in May," he said. "Yes," she said. "Judge Aldous is coming back in June for the final review." "Yes," she said again. "And the arrangement we made—" "Caleb," she said. He stopped. She turned and looked at him directly. "Ask me the actual question," she said. "Not the version that hides inside the practical details." He held her gaze. "Will you stay?" he said. Not because of the arrangement. Not because of the judge or the year or anything we agreed to. Will you stay because you want to? Because this is because you are... He stopped. Tried again. Because I love you. And I think I have for a while, and I think you know that, but I need to say it out loud, because you deserve to hear it said. In the kitchen behind them, the argument about eagles versus hawks had escalated to the point where Rose was demonstrating wingspans with her arms. Lily was counter-demonstrating. Neither of them was looking at the doorway. Anna looked at Caleb Hart, this man who had burst into her store with shaking hands and terrified eyes. This man who carved wooden animals and labeled his cabinets and rode through blizzards for his daughter and sat beside her in the kitchen when she couldn't sleep. This man who had learned the hard way, and the only way that loving people was not the danger he'd spent years treating it as. I have been in love with you, she said, since December. He blinked. December, he repeated. When Lily was sick, she said. When you came back from town, and the first thing you did was walk to her door and tell her you were back. She looked at him. That was when I knew. He was looking at her with an expression she didn't quite have a name for. Something between disbelief and the particular tenderness of a man who has been found in a place he thought he'd hidden well. You could have mentioned that, he said. I was waiting for you to catch up, she said. And Caleb Hart, the most feared man in the territory, the mountain man who trusted no one, the recluse who had spent years believing that the safest thing he could do for the people he might have loved was to stay away from them. Laughed. A full, real laugh surprised out of him, the laugh of a man who has been outmaneuvered by a woman he loves and finds it entirely wonderful. The girls looked up. What's funny? Lily said. Nothing, Caleb said. Something, Lily said. Grown-up business, Caleb said. Lily looked at Rose. Rose looked at Lily. They turned back to the book with the synchronized skepticism of two children who had already formed a unified front on the subject of adult evasiveness. Anna looked at Caleb. He looked at Anna. He reached out and took her hand, and she let him, and they stood in the doorway of the cabin that had once been the loneliest place in the territory, listening to the sound of their daughter arguing about birds with the girl who might become her cousin, and neither of them let go. The final review came on a Thursday in June, and Judge Aldous arrived to find a cabin that had expanded in more ways than one. Daniel and Rose had gone back to Redfield in April, but had returned in May this time with more of their belongings. This time, with the conversation between the brothers had settled into something real and ongoing. Daniel had found work in Willow Creek with the farrier who needed a skilled man. Rose was enrolled in Anna's school. When Judge Aldous arrived, he found the Hart cabin with 2 extra plates on the table, and a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old in the yard, and a man he recognized as Caleb Hart's brother, sitting on the steps carving something while watching the children. He stood for a moment before he knocked. He had been doing this work for 30 years, and he had learned to read a home in the first 30 seconds. Not the furnishings, not the tidiness, but the quality of the attention that people paid to each other, the way they moved in a shared space. Whether the children in it moved freely or carefully. He watched for 30 seconds. Then he knocked. Anna opened the door. She looked different from November, not in any way he could have specified to a third party, but in the way of a woman who had stopped managing a careful distance between herself and her own life. Her eyes were direct and unhurried. She looked like a person who was standing exactly where she meant to be. Judge Aldous, she said. Come in, there's coffee. He came in. Caleb Hart stood up from the table and shook his hand, and Aldous looked at this man who had sat across from him in November with the terror of a man gambling his daughter's entire future on a 60-day arrangement, and he saw someone categorically different. Not a different person. The same person, but with something in him that had been clenched open at last. Mr. Hart, he said. Judge, Caleb said. Lily came in from outside screen door, banging behind her in the way of a child, completely at home in a space, and stopped when she saw the judge. She looked at him. She looked at her parents. She straightened up. Hello, Judge Aldous, she said. He looked at her. This child who had stood on a November train platform with one braid undone and the measuring eyes of someone who had decided not to trust anything until it proved itself worthy. "Miss Hart," he said, "you look well." "I am well," she said with the simplicity of someone for whom this is just a statement of fact. He interviewed them each separately as before. Anna told him the truth, all of it. The arrangement, the way it had changed the letter from Colorado Springs, and what it had meant, the school, Daniel and Rose, the blizzard, and the illness, and the morning Lily called Caleb Dad for the first time. She did not perform any of it. She just told it the way she had come to tell most things directly without apology, with the confidence of someone who has looked at her life and found it imperfect and unexpected and entirely real to be something she was proud of. Caleb told him about the mine, about Daniel, about the 14 years of silence and the March afternoon on the train platform. The judge listened without interrupting, which was a thing Anna had noticed about him. He understood that the important information was often not in what people said, but in what they allowed themselves to say. Lily's interview lasted 18 minutes, which was 6 minutes longer than last time. When the judge came back out, he sat down at the table, and the three hearts, Anna and Caleb and Lily, in the way that the word had long since stopped feeling like a formality and started feeling like a fact, sat across from him. He looked at them for a moment. "Mrs. Hart," he said, "in November, you told me that what existed in this cabin was a real family, the kind built from difficult days and honest conversations." "Yes," Anna said. "I want you to know," the judge said, "that in 30 years of this work, I have very rarely been entirely correct in my initial assessment." He folded his notebook on the table. "This is one of those rare cases." He signed the papers. Permanent custody of Lily Hart, awarded to Caleb and Anna Hart of Willow Creek, Wyoming. Lily looked at the signed paper for a long moment. Then she looked at Caleb. Then at Anna. "That's it," she said. "That's it," the judge said. "It's official," Lily said. "I'm yours." "You've been ours," Anna said, "since November." Lily looked at the paper once more. Then she pushed back her chair and walked around the table to Anna and put her arms around her waist and pressed her face against her side, and Anna wrapped her arms around this child who was her daughter in every way that the word had ever meant anything, and held her. Over Lily's head, Caleb looked at Anna. His eyes were wet. He was not pretending otherwise. She looked back at him and felt the full weight and wonder of everything that had happened since a November morning when the door of her general store had burst open and the most terrifying man in the territory had walked in with shaking hands and desperate eyes. She had come to save a child. She had ended up saving herself. And somewhere in between, a broken man had put himself back together one honest day at a time and had become the kind of person his daughter could call home. What happened in the months that followed was not dramatic. It was better than dramatic. It was the quiet accumulation of an ordinary life that had been earned through extraordinary effort. Anna taught school through the spring and into the next year, and she was the best teacher Willow Creek had ever had, and her students went on to argue about that in her favor for 30 years. Lily was her best and most difficult student, and they were both entirely proud of that. Caleb came into town every day. He spoke to people. He remembered their names. He helped with things that needed helping with, not because anyone asked, but because he had stopped measuring how much of himself he was allowed to spend on other people. The reputation did not disappear entirely. Some stories have too deep a root, but it was revised substantially and permanently by everyone who came to know him. Daniel and Rose stayed in Willow Creek. Daniel's blacksmith shop became the kind of place where people came for more than horseshoes. They came because he was steady and honest, and because his shop smelled like iron and fire and was always warm. Rose became Lily's shadow, and then her equal, and then her best argument, and they went through school and into life the way only people can who found each other before they were old enough to be guarded. Caleb read Lily's mother's letters all the way through, finally on a Sunday evening in July, and he told Anna what they said. Not all of them, because some of them were between him and her and the years they'd had. But the important parts. And they sat with those parts together, and it was not easy, and it was not supposed to be. He put a small carved bird on the windowsill of the room where her mother's picture sat. A wren. The same kind he'd carved for Anna's windowsill on the very first night. Lily found it there and didn't say anything about it for a long time. One evening in October, almost exactly a year since Anna had married Caleb Hart in a back room with 2 paid witnesses and the practiced efficiency of a justice of the peace, Lily came and sat beside her at the table while she was grading papers. "Anna," she said. "Yes," Anna said without looking up. "What would have happened to you," Lily said, "if Dad hadn't come into the store?" Anna put her pen down. She looked at Lily. This girl who was 8 now, whose braids were always perfect because she had learned to do them herself, whose natural history books had multiplied into a collection that was taking over the shelf, whose voice had gotten a little lower and a little more certain as she'd grown into the space the year had given her. "I think," Anna said carefully, "I would have stayed in that store for the rest of my life, and I would have been fine. And I would have called fine enough because I didn't know yet that it wasn't." Lily looked at her. "And now?" "And now I know the difference," Anna said. Lily considered this. "I think you would have figured it out eventually," she said, "even without us." "Maybe," Anna said, "but I'm very glad I didn't have to wait." Lily nodded satisfied and went back to her room. Anna sat at the table for a moment with her pen in her hand. Then Caleb came in from outside. He always did in the evening, bringing the cold in with him, and the smell of the mountain, and the pine, and the particular November air of almost winter. And he came and stood beside her table, and put his hand on her shoulder briefly, the easiest and most natural thing in the world, and said, "Lily, get her work done." "She asked me something first," Anna said. "What?" "What would have happened to me without you?" she said. He was quiet for a moment. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," Anna said. He looked at her. "I would have been fine," she said. "And I would have called that enough." She looked up at him. "And I would have been wrong." He held her gaze. Then he reached down and took her hand from the table and held it, and she let him, and the fire was going, and Lily was in her room, and Daniel and Rose were coming for supper on Sunday, and outside the first snow of the second winter was beginning to fall. This was the life they had built. Not the one any of them had planned. Not the one that would have seemed possible to any of them on the November morning when a terrified man burst through a general store door with shaking hands and desperate eyes. But the one they had chosen. Every hard day, an honest word and moment of standing still when running would have been easier. The one they kept choosing each of them every morning. They got up and made the coffee and faced whatever the day held together. Lily Hart grew up in the cabin on a Wyoming mountain and became a teacher like her mother. Both mothers. The one who gave her life and the one who chose her. And she taught her students the same thing Anna had taught her without ever quite saying it directly. That the most important decision you will ever make is whether to stay when staying is hard. Caleb Hart stopped being the man people whispered about and became the man people pointed out to their children as proof that the stories we tell about people are not the final word on who they are. And Anna Whitmore, who had spent 6 years making herself small in penance for a mistake she finally learned to carry without being crushed by it, stood in the doorway of a mountain cabin on a winter morning and understood simply and completely that she had not come to the mountains to save anyone. She had come to find out that she was worth saving too, and that was the truth that all 3 of them carried forward into the years and the seasons and the ordinary, extraordinary days of a life built by people who had been broken and had chosen against all their own evidence to try. They were the Hart family of Willow Creek, Wyoming, and they were all of them entirely irrevocably home.